I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't gonna lie to you. I love me that music. That one's a pretty fly track. Welcome everybody to another edition of Hot Program. I am your host with the most from the East Coast, Dr. Pocket Locker, aka Jay Bundy, aka the fastest rising star in left-wing, right-wing media coverage, Mr. David Blackman himself. And I am joined by my I don't even know how to say this. My wonderful co-host who I look up to, who is a married, productive member of society. He's the lead pastor of the First Church of the Cult of the Flying Man, the one and only Tux TV. Yes, the person who needs to sign things probably has much better credit. Somebody around here has to take responsibility for something, and I am not the guy. My one black friend is with us in spirit and in truth. No, he's here. He was having a bit of an issue with this camera. I think he's here. Oh, guys, we got even better things happening. We got even more things happening. We are joined by the international lover, the frequent lady discoverer, the man who his company is like, my one black friend, we need you over here. Then we need you over here. We're going to send you to the East Coast. We're going to send you to the Midwest. We're going to send you to the West Coast. A man who needs no introduction, which is good because we can't see him on camera. My one black friend, guys, trust me, he's not quite as black as his backdrop there, but he is indeed my one black friend. And guys, yes, we've got the star of all of this drama, the person who just continues to trigger all of the friendly theists. Another one of our pastors at the First Church of the Cult of the Flying Man. In fact, our newest pastor at the First Church of the Cult of the Flying Man. James Apperson, what are you doing? Why are you out here hurting people's feelings, making everybody cry? What's going on with you, bud?
Oh, I love it. I drink their tears for breakfast. Great way to start the day.
All right, we're gonna play this thing from the beginning, guys. The reason we called this episode our YouTube Frienemies is because that's what it's about. It's about this tension that we have in this space where we've all got these YouTube channels or social media accounts. We're all trying to grow our followings and our communities. We get friendly with the other side. And sometimes people forget you're still the other side. So, James, I'm going to play Rebecca's little bit here. But before I get into it, why don't you give the people this sort of 10,000-foot view of what happened and how this drama came to be?
So I blog a lot, way more than I should anyways. And usually Rebecca just kind of skims over my blogs and doesn't really engage with them, even when they're directly to her about her or her channel. Now, this particular blog only mentioned her and one other person on her channel briefly. Like, most of the blog had nothing to do with them directly, just only indirectly. But she took a couple of things in there personal. She felt like they were more about her than they were. And she felt like some of the wording was stronger than it should have been. And so I've got all these other blogs that I really, really wish she would have picked those blogs to run with. But she picked this one because she took it personal. So she, all the other really great content I've got there just doesn't get addressed there, but that's fine. So I tried to explain to her even before she made a stream about this. I'm like, look, if you're taking this personal, it's not about you. I mean, I mentioned you in terms of like the evolution debate, but the rest of it's not really specific to you. Maybe you should call me or we should talk or whatever. And if you want to make a stream, go ahead. So She decided to. Now, she didn't warn me. She didn't tell me. Well, she did sort of, but she didn't tell me when she was going to do the stream. I just happened to be online at the time. Happened to
like
see
today. In full disclosure, I didn't either. Right? I just like literally 2 minutes ago was like, "Hey, James, we're about to talk about you. If you're on, you might want to get on."
Yeah.
yeah. All right, go ahead.
So chances are, statistically speaking, you would expect me to have missed it. I just happened to get lucky and was online at the time. So I was there to kind of defend myself and explain myself a little bit better. And there were moments during the stream where I felt like I did a really great job. And there were other moments in the stream where I could have done better, but I'm going to cover that later on my own channel when I get, I'm working on some videos right now. So,
fantastic.
So, yeah.
Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off. I just wanted to say that I hope that as part of this discussion, we'll be able to talk about what happened and sort of how it speaks to the issues and the sort of conversations we have in this community, but also to our interpersonal relationships with these people and also to the game, right? Like I said, we're all content creators. Look, if somebody leaves you a super chat or something like that and they're on YouTube, that means they have a channel, right? Even if they're not using it or putting videos up there. So I think it's good for people to just hear us kind of have this discussion about how these things really go. But yeah, continue to and tell us how you feel about this, because for me, I felt like what you said, to your point, it was fair. You did mention some examples, and that's what has to happen. If I say, listen, guys, these Shrouded Turin people, I'm gonna say, comma, like Otangelo, comma, and keep going, right? Because that's an example that we all know in this community. And to your point, when I heard what you said and everything like that, and we're gonna play some of it, I was like, he is describing how I called it the atheist position about Christianity, but let's be technical and say how many atheists feel about many Christians. And my exact wording was, this isn't about how James feels about Rebecca, because he could easily just he could have stuck in Jason Bundy and name a Christian, and it would have been the same thing. I would have said and felt the same way you did. And I also just want to touch on, I felt like a bit of the emotional response and backlash to you was sort of like, I feel like a bit of bullying, a bit of like, well, if I can get you guys to do the whole, like the how dare you, right? And then you guys will realize you can't say these things about us because we get super offended and we'll shame you, or maybe even take it as far as not wanting to be your friend anymore, right?
Yeah.
And then in her response to you, it's like, James, how dare you say this about me? But by the way, James, I'm really worried about you. And I think this type of thinking is super dangerous. And it's so dangerous. Like, I'm not even, James, do you have children? Do you have a family? Well, if you got this type of attitude and you're teaching this type of ideation to your children, I'm very concerned about that. But how dare you call me a child abuser, right? Like, that was honestly how I felt.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right. So so there was two main points that she had a problem with. One, the use of the word war, being or in war and battle, and the other was the use of the word child abuse, or phrase child abuse. Now, as far as the child abuse point goes, my focus wasn't so much on teaching children to doubt evolution or to think that there's a Genesis creation story. My problem was that that's part of this larger social mechanism where children are being raised to have a disproportionate or radical distrust of science and the scientific method and secular advancement. And so it's part of this larger cultural tapestry where they're raised into conspiracy theory thinking, and they don't have a healthy or functional understanding of what science really is, how it really works, and how we like tease out the truths of the universe as best we can. So they end up in this conspiracy theory mindset and in this conservative Christian culture where they then get easily sold on the idea that global climate change isn't happening, or that the vaccines are a liberal plot to control people through fear, and all these crazy ideas. It's all interconnected, and that's the larger picture, the larger problem I have an issue with. Now, so by itself, just teaching a child, telling your own child, I'm not convinced evolution's true, and I kind of think this whole Bible story is true. That by itself is somewhat innocuous. It's not the bigger problem, right? So, but in the meantime, it's like she doesn't understand that this talking point among atheists or critical skeptics of religion that childhood indoctrination is a form of child abuse isn't something that I just pulled out of my ass. It's a common talking point. It is a common position held amongst rational skeptic atheists. There is some wiggle room, some gray room, or some divergence in the community about which examples of religious indoctrination count as something so horrible that we need to call it child abuse, versus some of the kind of gray issues that aren't that big of a deal. You know, there's some wiggle room in there somewhere, but there's an awful lot that happens on her side of the fence that is undeniably, irrefutably child abuse. And she doesn't want to think about that. She doesn't want to own that. She doesn't want to hear that kind of strong language. But it is what it is. But she did have a valid concern. She felt like, or she wanted to know if I think that we should be legislating or banning certain, parental rights of Christians to teach their children whatever they want to teach them. And of course, my position was no, we shouldn't be banning it and legislating it, not because it isn't abuse, but because that is a very slippery slope, because then who gets to decide where to draw the line and how do we enforce that? And then we'd have, of course, a bunch of Christian fundamentalists crying persecution the moment we try to limit them to how much damage they're allowed to do to their own kids. And then the other issue was that the wording of battle and battlefield and war. Now there is a culture war happening, and there is a battlefield that we're all on, and she has chosen a side. And it's interesting because she feels like she doesn't want to openly and publicly disagree with other Christians, because that seems to run counter to the idea of loving and accepting them. But she has no reservation at all about challenging us publicly and going against us and refuting us and criticizing us. So that means that she knowingly is showing them a fellowship and a love and a respect that she's not showing us. And that's okay, because she's on the other side of the fence. She should just, if that's where she's at, then that's where she's at. She should speak her mind. But at the same time, it's like, let's not pretend there isn't a war happening. Let's not pretend that she isn't on the other side of that fence. So that's my general position.
Yeah, and I want to make sure I play a little bit of it. I'm not, guys, watch James' stuff, read James's blog, watch Rebecca's video. I'm not here to recap all of that. I'm going to play a little bit of it just so people get a high-level view of some of the specifics in the language that was used on both sides. I want to bring in Tux and, of course, my one black friend. But before I do that, I just want to quickly hit on a couple things that are very important here to me. Number one, you touched on the fact that it really gives these people a difficult time grasping with reality. To me, I call it the basics. Let's talk about birth and death. You ever think anybody was born to a virgin? When you say yes, we think your view of the natural world totally fucked up and you ain't with the picture. What's the deal with death? Are you going to die? We all die, right? Well, no, I believe if I believe in Jesus, that will allow me to have eternal life. Once again, way off from reality. You touched on STEM careers, right? It's something I talk about all the time. People ask me, how do you play in church? Why do you go to Bible study? How can you hang out and love these people and want to, be a part of their community? Because it allows me to have the conversations with the students who, because of all this religious nonsense, are never going to walk into my evolutionary biology classroom. And if they never walk into my evolutionary biology classroom, then what do you think the chances are of them becoming professional evolutionary biologists is? Next to goddamn zero. So you touched on the STEM thing, you're really hurting their ability to be in STEM careers, which is ironic because they all want to brag about, well, didn't you hear about all the great Christian scientists, right? Well, right. Yeah. You're not helping us make any more great Christian scientists, that's for damn sure. And literally, people like me, this is a professional fight. Fighting this fight is what I'm trying to do for a living. I'm not just an experimental evolutionary biologist. I'm an experimental evolutionary biologist who a huge, huge focus of my work is what we call evolution, education, and outreach, specifically professional development from the womb to the tomb. I'm working on a video game called Salmon Run. It's literally for elementary school kids. It's a collaboration with a bunch of scientists. The goal is to get them exposed to science careers in elementary school. I work with Avita Ed. We target high school and undergraduate education. Cliff and I work with MABE. That's for developing the research skills of graduate students and faculty members. Get the fuck out of here. From the womb to the tomb, I am concerned about people in STEM careers, especially especially as it relates to diversity, women in science, on and on and on, right? Now, another thing is, you talked about the childhood indoctrination. I'm gonna lay my cards on the table. You don't believe me? Go check my stream from yesterday and see what I'll be doing later. I read an email that I wrote to my family about how I'm very concerned about my mother's plans to move back to New Jersey so that she and her husband, in the retirement that they have earned, can take care of my grandparents, right? My mom's like, oh, I just retired. And actually, she went back to work, right? And now instead of going to the Arizona or California and chilling and playing golf, she's like, I'm gonna move back to New Jersey so I can build a home for my mother and father, and me and my husband are gonna spend our best retirement years taking care of my aging and elderly grandparents, right? Now, what's fucked up about all this? My grandfather is still the pastor and the bishop of Cornerstone Church of Christ in Jersey City, New Jersey, on the corner of Communipal and Pacific. Look the motherfucker up right now. Now, his dumb ass will not stop having services at said church, right? And my grandmother's dumb ass is right there with them. So what happened? Y'all already know how this goes. They got COVID, right? They're all right because we were able to get them vaccinated and boosted in the blases and flavonoids, but they were both very sick, and my grandmother sounded awful, right? And I'm not exactly willing to roll that dice again, right? Now, what is the point? I'm talking about my grandmother, their bishops. Nobody stays a child forever. So when I was literally thinking about this in the shower today, preparing for this show, I was like, you know what I'm going to tell these motherfuckers? You could use grandparent indoctrination, parent indoctrination, because nobody stays a child forever. So somebody indoctrinated my grandmother, right? She was a child. She was indoctrinated as a child. She continued to indoctrinate this family. Now my dumbass mother's indoctrinated, and I was indoctrinated, and if it wasn't for my science education, I'd probably be a YouTube apologist instead of a counter-apologist. Don't believe me? Again, I have on my Safe Haven Summer Camp church, because this is from when I worked at Trinity Reformed Church when I was a minister and a youth pastor at a church. Right, I was the summer camp co-counselor, the after-school coordinator, worked in the studio, was in a music and rap group, right? Okay, played on the worship team. Go fuck yourselves. This is my real life. The point is, this is real talk to us, and the dangers are very real. Okay. I'm as a PhD struggling to convince my family, hey, maybe y'all shouldn't do mass gatherings in the middle of a goddamn pandemic. Maybe y'all should wake up to the reality that a church with a full congregation is literally the most dangerous place on earth right now. So nobody stays a child forever. So thank you, James Apperson, for having the balls to speak to this issue directly. And go fuck yourselves, Christians, if you don't want to hear it. And my first critique to you was, don't soften it at all. Encourage others to speak up and tell these people what they need to hear, because it encourages people like me to do the same. And I will have your back every time on things like this. Every time. Brother.
And I greatly appreciate that. That's why I didn't go back and soften it, even though initially I was on the fence about that. And I thought, maybe I could use softer language. And then I thought, well, why should I? Because Jay's right. I mean, I'm right. This is the situation.
It is what
why
it
should
is.
I soften that? Yep.
And like you said, it's war. And again, Christians, if y'all don't like us using battlefield language, hang on a second. I got a hymn for you. Onward, Christian soldier. Goose stepping. Y'all noticed the goose stepping song, right? All right, Tux, go ahead. Get at these people. Then we're going to hear from our one black friend and get into this footage.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, that's you looking forward to. That's what you got for us.
That's I was going to bring up the onward Christian soldiers, and maybe we could repurpose it for onward non-Christian soldiers.
Yeah, right.
No.
Go ahead, my one black friend. I know he's been waiting to get in here. He doesn't have his normal hand waving power to go. Go ahead, my one black friend, please.
Okay, I actually fired up another computer, so it might be ready to bring me visually into the room.
Take your time. We're still here for you, bro. It's all good. It's all good. Glad you could join us.
I'll just say this. The key syllable and the most dangerous syllable in the word indoctrination is nation. If you convince enough people to follow the party line, even when the idea is bad, you're making trouble. And you're making trouble for a lot of people. We've all heard the expression, teach people what to think, or teach people how to think, not what to think. I think we would have a far better world if that were the rule, as opposed to telling children and adults what they ought to believe. Giving someone the autonomy and the tools to be able to make effective, poignant decisions should be the focus, not simply believe whatever I tell you and do what I say. That's not even good enough to serve the person that you are trying to educate. Sadly, my idea, what I just said, is dangerous to some people, even though it's what they think they think. They just don't know how to say it. They don't know how to articulate it. For Rebecca, she's concerned about our souls, if you will. She wants the world to be a better place. She wants people to be joyful and happy and all that wonderful, those wonderful qualities to life. That's great. But I think what happens is if you can't accept criticism that is constructive, and if you truly are interested in making the world a better place, perhaps you need to be ready to jettison some of your ideas. As I commented on our broadcast a few weeks ago about that long thing I wrote about you're holding on to nothing with your clenched fist. I think with a closed mind, you are holding on to something, but perhaps it's just not the right idea. It's not what you should be holding on to. It may be what you need to let go of.
I couldn't agree more. And I've started to call this Christianity's fatal flaw. And you could say this about any religion, right? It's just that no matter what, at all costs, you can't admit you're wrong. So when you start from the principle that I have to be on this side, then of course you're going to do whatever it takes, right, to find a way to hang on to it. So you first, I think, have to address is, are you willing to let go of this? Because if you're not, then it's a different story, because I think that's where a lot of us started. We kind of had to do some song and dance to figure out, am I really going to go where the truth leads, or am I going to just, ride or die for my faith? And so I think a lot of times my frustration, and I'm very glad you're helping me learn how to articulate this, is that I feel like a lot of the people I talk to don't understand our words when we try to describe just how serious we were about our faith, right? And just how hard it was for us to let go of it. But exactly to your point, and I was thinking about this the other day, to me, I put it very simply. As an honest Christian, I had to take the loss. As they say in the hood, I had to take the L. Right? I had to just understand when it comes to evolution, we lost that battle. When it comes to being able to, really document the life and teachings of Jesus, it ain't there. As far as making people believe on the resurrection based in evidence, it's not there, right? It wasn't comfortable for me to admit that as a Christian, but I wanted to tell a story. I'm going to try to tell it quickly. I played on a basketball team where literally we lost every single game. Now, I played on this team for 2 years. We were a very small Catholic school. We played much bigger, more talented schools. We lost everything, right? In 2 years, we won one game. We won one game because the team that we played that day had to play in the tournament. They, of course, decided the tournament was more important. They played in the tournament. They had to forfeit their game to us. We had a pizza party. All right. Now, what is my point? We still had to show up to practice, take the game seriously, play within the rules, have our parents and our girlfriends and our friends and our families and all of them people come to show up to all our games and cheer us on, right? And then the next year, you got to sign up for basketball, and it's like, do you love this game enough, knowing that y'all going to lose and you go ahead and you sign up, yep. Yep, we with here as a team, right? Yep, y'all back. Yep, coach, we right here. We putting our, let's go, let's get it, right? And so I'm so thankful for that experience because you learn how to lose with dignity. And you just gotta accept the game is over, and we'll take the victories we can get. You know, we be talking shit at the end of the games. You know why? Because the team used to come out, talk trash to us at the beginning of the game, and say, we're going to whoop y'all by 50 points. And the buzzer would go off at the end of the game, and we would start cheering and celebrating and laughing and clowning at them. And they would be like, what happened? We just beat y'all by 35. And we would say, exactly, and you said you were going to beat us by 50. You got to learn how to lose with dignity, folks. Let me play the beginning of this. And yeah, that's my message, Christians. I just got to learn how to take this L.
Hello, everyone. I don't expect a big crowd today because I am streaming opposite Pine Creek, but that's okay.
Proud of her for going head to head. Let's get it. We out here.
Doing what kind of the third video in this series, which is called Atheist Confession. And what this is me just taking your complaints about religion, about God. And the name for it came from my friend Gray in the UK, who started sending me what he calls his confessions. So like for a while, about every week or so, Gray would send me a long complaint about all the problems that he has with religion. So I used his complaints as for the first two videos, and today I'm going to use one from James Apperson. And you know, Gray is a little more, I guess, lighthearted and comical in his confessions, so maybe those were a little more lighthearted. The blog I'm going to read today is pretty heavy, and so but I definitely want to respond to it. There's a lot of emotion behind it. And then I think James may join me on stream and kind of talk through it too. So this is called The Essential Value of Proportional Response to Any and All Dangers. And you can find the link to this blog in the description of this video. So it starts this way. As an anti-theist, anti-godist, rational skeptic, I understand that evolution of species is an established fact, at least as much as gravity is a fact. I also realize that the entire matter has nothing whatsoever to do with whether or not any gods exist. And yet I realize that any creationist camp pushing creationism on YouTube isn't enough of a big deal to get upset about. Being gaslit by bad faith actors in a debate is cause to feel some irritation. It can even be a good cause to go off on someone who keeps playing head games. Gaslighting is a form of abuse. A zero tolerance policy for abuse is reasonable, but it's important to recognize when that is or isn't happening. Most creationists like Sal and Rebecca, he's responding to a video I did with Sal pretty recently, simply don't realize how wrong they are. As always, words in blue are link. Okay, sorry. They're not lying. They're not gaslighting. They're just wrong. And the reasons they are wrong are things like psychology, sociology, neurophysiology, etc. They literally were forced to be wrong by some rather unfortunate physics due to persistent elements of...
Sorry, guys. There's something I need to draw your attention to. Like
she's
they're saying
using blush.
See, and that's an example of how the professor knows you were distracted. Now, somebody said, YouTube Punk said, heavy blog, evolution only debunks Adam and Eve types, not a capital G God, for sure, all of that. But guys, the thing I wanted you to pay attention to is James Apperson's writing. Right? This man's trying to get out here with his blog. He's going to start a YouTube channel. This is our friend. You need to show him your support. Listen to how he is laying this all out. This is like a really, really fine dining experience with the master chef who is in the kitchen just whipping it up, tossing the knives, doing all the tricks, but creates you the most perfectly crafted, tasteful meal. Like, this shit just bangs. James Apperson, your writing, my guy, it's just really, really good. Keep growing, keep working on it, keep doing what you're doing, bro.
dysfunction within their semi-isolated subculture niche. Meanwhile, creationists, flat earthers, etc., just really don't have a strong impact on my life, nor most people's lives, at least not as a direct result of those mistakes. I mean, sure, if they're indoctrinating their kids into these crazy conspiracy theories, they're doing harm. For example, it threatens their kids' future to make rational sense of the world they live in. But so does the larger whole of their religion. It also threatens to disqualify them from being competitive in all STEM-related professions. Yes, all of that is a big deal. I'd even go so far as to call that child abuse. But that's not really the thing some skeptics are getting so upset shape about most of the time. Usually when a skeptic hears this crap, they take it personally, like it's an attack on them or an attack on the fabric of society. But I think that's really overblown. I would remind my fellow rational skeptics, there really isn't anything creationists, flat earthers, etc. can do to hold society overall back.
Jason Torn in the house.
Common education has overcome it in all developed nations. So the only people whose education they can still sabotage are an ever-shrinking minority of sufficiently vulnerable targets. Granted, that's a big deal because those people matter. However, most of those victims will eventually overcome that sabotage. Why? Because of how successful we've been at making sure the actual education is provided to the vast majority of humans on our planet. Intelligent design is a stubborn, progress-resistant meme which won't live beyond this century. It started in a knowledge vacuum as something to fill that troubling gap, but these days it's a Hail Mary pass. It's a futile attempt to protect their conservative, Abrahamic literalist culture from dying out. They will fail. In fact, such societal arsonists, both the willful and the naive, have already lost more ground than they can recover. Why? Because of the larger wave of physics crashing down upon their many roaring fires. And yet, pushback on YouTube, even small, especially small YouTube channels, is a very minor force in our collective wave of remedy.
Now, here's a lot of y'all are with all this, right? Like I said, wonderfully crafted arguments. And it's very easy to hear this and go, yeah, we get it. And yeah, that's right. Science is winning this out. But there's a lesson in here that Sal and Rebecca and Taylor and all of these people need to learn. The same thing happens on YouTube. The same way the scientific consensus, right? Because everybody's able to read the same stuff, observe the same stuff, and they eventually start moving towards the same consensus, right? And we're like, yeah, that intelligent design creationism, that don't work. The biblical literalism, that doesn't work. It ain't because people just wanted to leave their faith, right? It's because all of the common observances, right? That's what happens on YouTube. Like, Rebecca, there's hundreds, if not thousands of hours of tape of us on YouTube talking about these issues. Mm-hmm. The inconsistency that you show. You have an entire second channel called Examining Evolution. Everybody is capable of watching you bring on the worst scientists who talk the most nonsense, and you give them the most platform and the most praise, and you try to get trained by them, and then the good scientists come on and goes in one ear and out the other. The tape is just out there. There's so much tape. It's literally like we could have our very own January 6th commission style examination of your views on evolution and whether or not it actually is bad enough that experts in science education would say that it's a threat to people, and like none of this stuff is about, oh, well, James Apperson's just a meanie. Oh, well, that James Apperson, he's just not a good person to be friends with because he just says some very inappropriate. James, I'm very disappointed in you. By the way, you're very dangerous for thinking that way. By the way, James, don't be around anybody while you think like that. Are you okay? Hey, can we get a wellness check? Y'all know I love my wellness checks. Hey, can we get a wellness check on James Apperson? He's got some very, very, very dangerous ideas. Are those red flag laws passed? Can we get because I got to take this off my head and throw in the red flag on you, James? Very dangerous, okay? Right? Like, y'all, the tape is out there. Let's have the commission. Y'all down to have a Rebecca Davis commission? Come on. It would be like, it'd actually be kind of fun. This might be going somewhere. Pocket Locker 86. Email me if you want to be a member of the Rebecca Davis commission.
Misinformation on YouTube merits just a measure of our attention, even less of our ire. If we're going to prioritize the spending of our respective personal resources, there are other stages and other matters which warrant more of our time, energies, etc. Please do stand as vanguards against every form of destruction their clan tries to spread to the larger body of humanity. Stand united, stand strong between them and science classrooms. Stand united, stand strong between them and the targets of their bullying, LGBT, atheists, etc. Stand united, stand strong between them and their collective efforts to enslave and destroy people through legislation.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Just don't lose any sleep over them saying really dumb things on YouTube. Necessary lines must be drawn. And that is where some anger is both due and can translate into some benefit to our collective resolve. Where we draw those lines matters. Otherwise, we're wasting our precious time and energies. Someone qualified should challenge such nonsense wherever they notice it. But when there are 100 stages for that battle and 100 other battles worth fighting, we should scale our efforts for every scene. Our responses, external and internal, should always be roughly proportionate to the dangers posed. Now, James had asked me for feedback on this, and I gave him a little bit of feedback on comments. And what I said was, that I was surprised that he was using the word child abuse to, describe the, what religious people teaching their children about God. And he responded this way. So I'm going to go ahead and read this too, and then I'm going to respond to everything. So he says, Bread of Life, of course, with this in mind, if the reason or a reason is that you feel personally accused of something terrible, the child abuse, then I'm also inviting you to call me. Okay, so invitation to call him. It wasn't my intention to call you out nor accuse you of anything. I don't even know if you have kids, or if so, how you raised them, for example.
What up, Jerome?
I admit in that blog, I could have softened the edges in a few places. I'm on the fence about if I should have. At the very least, I could have articulated a greater nuance about a few things, and I normally do. But I've been trying to make my blog shorter since most are simply too long. When you posted this question to me, I was on Jay Bundy's.
All right, yeah. So this is, I shouldn't have paused it there because he's talking about me. But this is really important, guys, right? People have the right to be concise and to want to write shorter blogs. Also, people on YouTube have the right to talk about you. When you make public videos, you're a public figure. They call it mass communication for a reason. I don't ask, right? People might be surprised to hear this. Like, if I use a clip from Doug or somebody or just rip stuff off somebody's website and you're like, oh, Jay's friends with that person, I bet he asked them. No, I definitely don't. Why? Because the people I'm going to make fun of and I'm going to rip their stuff and I'm going to play all their foot, I don't ask them. So why would I ask anybody else? Like, it's just what it is. And I don't know if you guys have heard this, but Rebecca likes to say things like there's no such thing as bad publicity and it's all good. And she's all trying to, work the system, which I admire her for. I've learned a lot from her, in that regard, right? Like, oh yeah, it is a good idea to just pop up on LPP's channel because there's no such thing as bad publicity, right, Rebecca? And like, you know, hanging out at 2:00 in the morning with creationists. Hey, if that's a way to get us out there and expose to more people, then let's go for it, right? But at the same time, if you're gonna make that bed, you got to lay in it. So. All right, we're going to keep it rolling because I want y'all to hear some of her other stuff. Again, eventually, like I said, guys, we're not going to review the whole thing. I just want y'all to hear the beginning of it to lay out our conversation this afternoon. And if you want to see the whole thing, I suggest you go watch it on Bread of Life's channel. And also go ahead to James Apperson's Facebook and wherever else you can find the blog. James, where else can I find the blog? You don't get why we're talking about this, bro? We're talking about this. Actually, it's really funny because I could just play the part right now where I get mentioned and I could be like, well, because they're talking about me. But no, honestly, that's not why we're talking about it. We're talking about it because I actually think this is a really important conversation, and the whole religion, especially the Christianity that I'm familiar with as child abuse, is a huge part of my backstory and motivation. Matter of fact, when I watched, a big part of why I'm probably here is I watched the second Bill Nye Ken Ham debate. And it was the one where Bill Nye actually went to the Ark Encounter and he toured it with Ken Ham. And they sort of like had a walking debate as they were going around. And the way Ken Ham kept appealing to the children and kind of like using them to like kind of make these like emotional appeals, it was disgusting. And it was the first time I saw it clearly and actually verbalized it. And was like, this is child abuse. And I remember that day. I'll never forget it because I'm actually hoping to do something about it. Like, I really want Answers in Genesis to be sued for child abuse. I think their record speaks for itself. I think the fact that they go ahead and they say things like, oh, this is a museum, and the literal government is like, no, it's not a museum. You can't call it a museum. Then they're like, okay, we'll get it registered as a theme park. Then they register the shit as a theme park, and then they go ahead and call it a museum. Then they promise cities all this stuff, and then they like get these like tax deals and these tax abatements, and they never hold up to them. Like, these people are criminals. Why are they criminals? So they can lie to children. So they could just they could just take stuff we know that like we just know it's just settled science and be like, nope, children, none of that's true. None of that's true. So let's talk about Noah and the ark. Come over here. See humans alongside dinosaurs in the Creation Museum. Do you know how embarrassing that is? Dog, my mother was trying to talk to me. My mother's trying to talk to her son who's becoming a professional evolutionary biologist. She's trying to talk to me about evolution, and she actually asked me, well, son, what do you think of the Creation Museum? Do you know how bad I felt for her in that moment? So, Mom, let's have this conversation about how, 1, that's not science, 2, that's not a museum, 3, you should never listen to anything those people ever say to you ever. Yeah, that's a real great use of my time. Like, yeah, y'all don't understand. This is my life, right? Like, I come from a family of 5 generations of ministers who still don't understand they need to stop indoctrinating the children in this shit. For all of the reasons that James Apperson is laying out in this blog. So I would say, actually, this is the central issue to me. I care far more that people understand that Jay Bundy feels that Christianity is childhood indoctrination to the level of being child abuse, right? Yes, at the individual and at the like white collar, like corporate crime level, right? Like literally organized crime. That's what I think these people are. I think they're gangsters for Jesus. People who are willing to die for Jesus are willing to lie for Jesus. Please never forget that. Okay? So that is so much more important than you guys being like, oh, yeah, Jay, we can explain how digital evolution works. I'd be like, oh, my God, you guys make my heart melt when you guys talk about digital evolution. But compared to like Christianity is child abuse, I could give 2 fucks. Like, This is just so much more important. Here's a better question. Why do we sit around talking about theology and scriptural interpretations and the history of the Levant and the cultural practices of the ancient Israelites? Or the metaphysical axiology of the epistemological ontology of the philosophy that absolutely zero people care about? Yeah, no. Let's stick to this Christianity is child abuse, and our friends are trying to shame us into not saying it. Let's take that for $100.
Live stream asking if people there thought I was too harsh in my assessments. They thought it was fair, but I still decided I was going to go back and soften it a bit, clarifying my meaning and intent better. But after the show, I saw your question. So now if I go back and change it, it might seem like I'm trying to avoid being called out, answerable for my BS. I realize exactly how it sounds to someone on the other side of those fences. Now, I appreciated that James was kind of, kind of softening it a bit here. But then he kind of changes tone. He says, but at the end of the day, no matter how soft versus strong our feelings are, and no matter how soft or militant our approach, and no matter how passive versus active any of us are about any of it, we are all on a societal, national, and global battlefield. We are at war, and we're on opposite sides of that war. But it's not merely a war over ideologies, nor a battle over souls. The stakes are actually higher than that. Every facet of humanity's condition, near future and far future, is at stake. How many LGBT youth will be killing themselves tomorrow, next year, or 20 years from now? How many atheists, how many pagans also? That's at stake. So are the liberties of every citizen of every nation. So are all the health and mortality consequences of rampant pseudoscience
Preach.
And radicalized distrust of science, all related to conspiracy theories. So is the global climate...
Guys, I have just had a vision from Myron. I have seen the future. Guys, this is literally like a fantasy, right? We're literally, you guys got to appreciate this. You got to go watch this stream probably like 3 times after you hear what I'm about to say. Guys, just imagine if all of our friendship and all of this stuff and all this counter-apologetics we're doing actually influences Rebecca, right? And she lets go of the Christian nonsense. And then she's like, wait, guys, I got to double down and I got to go back. And now I've got to be an even stronger counter-apologist than I was an evangelist, right? So just this is the vision of the future. We're getting to literally hear James Apperson's atheist perspective from the mouth of Rebecca Davis on the internet. Like, this is just so wonderful. It's almost like when she's playing, like, when she does her little atheist Rebecca role play. This is like atheist Rebecca role play on James Apperson level, right? Like, wait, like just because she always just, that's some amateur, right? Step it up to the James Apperson level, right? That's what we get with this. This is amazing.
Climate, and so is the global climate.
Just imagine, y'all.
So is humanity's ability to avoid making itself and most other life on this planet go extinct in my children's lifetime. I greatly value being able to have civil discourse between sides. The more of that, the better. And my mind certainly can be changed about some things, but no one ever knows which things unless they try. Even I won't know which things until someone tries. And yet there is a general cementing or stubbornness for both of us when it comes to some issues. You'll always be loyal to the essential elements of your religious spiritual narrative, and I'll certainly remain resolute in my resolve to remain on this side of the Great War. However, I could be persuaded to relax, soften, or abandon some few of my current perceptions about how good or bad various specific issues may be. And if anyone could do that, you could. So it's worth a try if you might want to. It is also, of course, more than fair for you to use your own channel to speak your mind about literally anything. Meanwhile, I've posted about the question about child abuse in argument on my Facebook page and on a few Facebook groups, but I didn't post or mention my blog nor your channel. I'm curious to see what the range of responses will be, especially from other atheists. I certainly see at least some wiggle room for what might be the most reasonable language or sentiment about it. James, I'm really going to be curious. I would like to hear what the responses were, if you got responses. But I just want to kind of respond overall to the things you've said. I'm going to go
All right, James, before I let her do her response and then we'll have our overall conversation, I do want her to get her thoughts out there for a little bit, and then that'll be probably the rest of the footage that we'll show for today. But tell us about the response you've been getting. Put James up there. Put James up there for me. Thanks, Tux.
All right. So I did post a question in several different groups, and predictably, people that are on our side of the fence, atheists, secular persons, all overwhelmingly said, yeah, that's child abuse. They didn't even care about like the more specific issue. All of it's child abuse, and indoctrinating a child into these religious narratives is child abuse. And then some of them even more specifically address the evolution and things like that, because of the way that it stunts people's cognitive development and how that's not fair to the child going forward. There were a couple of people that were on our side of the fence that hedged a little bit about whether or not the evolution versus Genesis creation was overtly child abuse, or whether or not I should use softer language. But most people, like overwhelmingly most on our side of the fence, said, yeah, that's exactly the language we need to be using.
What about the other side? Did you get many responses from believers?
I didn't get a whole lot of responses from Christians. They tend to avoid anything that they can't afford to really address head on. They're not stupid when it comes to that. They know where they can't afford to step. But there was a couple that tried, and basically their responses were, "So what? It's our business. It's our kids, and don't you dare try to legislate this or push for legislation about this." And so I had to clarify, I'm not pushing for legislation. I'm not saying we should try to mobilize the government. But you never
said, like, they always, they always have to create an imaginary problem and a straw man, and in this case, it's all the legislation that you didn't mention.
Sure, exactly. So, if we get a chance, there's one thing in the blog that I want to play, a small video clip. It's very small, and I linked it there in private chat.
Oh, is that the link you said? Yeah, perfect. Thanks for pointing that out to me. And
that's linked in the blog. Yeah.
Let me.
The thing that's different about a Verbo vacation you always have the whole place to yourself.
I guess what did I do here? Oh, I pulled it up with the wrong account. I got to pull it up on my main account. Guys, please subscribe to my main account, Hunter Biden's Laptops. Yeah, it's my Mr. Hillary's emails account. They're always like, Jay, why are you making jokes? Why are you joking? There's no funny. It's like, this is a real thing. All right, I got to get the screen back up there. Like a full screen, I guess. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, guys, there you see it. Hunter Biden's Laptops. Go subscribe. Appreciate it. Love you guys.
Sacrifice the enterprise. We've made too many compromises already, too many retreats. They invade our space, and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds, and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
I'm with it. Honestly, I got to be honest with y'all. That's the vibe for me.
Yeah,
I'm in a take no prisoners mode with Christianity, because it's a take no prisoners type of religion, right? Like a lot of y'all, my most fundamental disagreement with a lot of y'all is that y'all are just softies. I think too many atheists. I get the idea of wanting to build relationships, and I agree with all of that. By the way, I think relationship building is the most effective way to create change. And both yourself and other people, right? But at the end of the day, I believe honesty is the biggest thing you have to risk, right? And I'll put it to y'all like this. Even in teaching, right, the most powerful moments come when I have to have a really difficult conversation with the student, right? When I have to set aside the cool vibes and the chill and the encouraging everybody and you guys are superstars. And when I've got to really let a student know, like, this wasn't it, right? And sometimes that's hard for my students, right? Because they're in a particular mode, right? They're all basically honor students. They live in a special college, and they're all off to med school and big things. And so their whole academic life, they've just been told how great they are and how amazing their rating is and how wonderful it is. And then all of a sudden, me and Rob hit them like, yeah, I ain't ready, right? And it's really difficult. And a lot of times they just react poorly, right? And we get it. We're like, this is a tough conversation to have. We totally understand. But the ones that pull through that and are like, okay, I'm gonna take what y'all say seriously, and okay, y'all saying I should use this tool and I should, organize my writing and outline more, and I should really, they take our advice seriously and their work gets better. Those are the students that they love you, right? Because they realize you cared enough, right, to say, I know you're not going to like this conversation we're about to have, but, me educating you right now is far more important than you thinking I'm cool right now, right? And so I think that's what I mean about not being too nice, right? You got to say, hey, we're friends. All right, time to tell you, I think this is child abuse. Just like y'all that watched my stream yesterday, saw the email I sent to my family. Hey, I love y'all, but it's time to say, Grandma and Grandpa, y'all got to stop doing in-person services. Mom and Reggie, love y'all. Appreciate y'all for wanting to take care of my grandparents, but maybe you ought to consider letting them stay in the church house if they're not ready to stop having services in person, because you can't take care of them or anybody else if you're laid up in the hospital with COVID or laid to rest. Now, did I want to send my family that email before I did a live stream yesterday? Absolutely fucking not. Did they want to receive it? Absolutely fucking not. But they did. Actually, my mother responded. Stay tuned later. I'll read that just so y'all can see where we're at with all of that now. But that's the point. Real love sometimes requires risk. You don't believe me? Ask fucking No Name. Ask fucking Cameron, right? A lot of my fucking mods, we had to have difficult fucking conversations. One way and the other. Jay, we need you to do X, Y, and Z. Guys, mods, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. Right? That's just how we all grow together. So I appreciate you for doing this. And I think in the end, right, the reason I was excited about this was because I figured like at least y'all talked about it on stream together. And I originally, when I actually did get through more of this, actually, I reviewed like the first probably half of this or something on stream the other day by myself. And one thing I really pointed out was that we're all real people, right? And I tell people all the time, like my mods know, I treat YouTube like dating or like a social life or whatever, right? You should always communicate with me in the most private means you have available to you. Right? Like if you want to tell me something, my live chat, which is popping up in screen in front of everybody that sees it and everybody that will watch it forever, is really not the place to do it, right? If you have a DM, right? James Apperson, where do we talk? On Facebook. Through what? Private messages, right? Because we're friends like that. We have a, right? So if I had to say something to you, I probably wouldn't go, hey guys, I'm going to go live on YouTube and tell you why James Apperson fucking sucks today. Yeah, so listen, guys, James Apperson really pissed me off the other fucking day, right? I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to be like, yo, James, look, let's talk about this, right? And I would say it's like a stripper. If you think she could have wore a cuter outfit or improved her performance, but you're dating her, she probably doesn't want you to tell that in the middle of her show, right? If you live with her, she probably would appreciate it if you wait till she gets home, right? Like the most private means you have available to you. It's just a natural part of being in relationships with people. So my point is, y'all put it out there, right? Like you wrote about your feelings publicly about one of your friends. She responded publicly about how she felt about it. And then you got on there. So if nothing else, I wanted people to understand nobody that creates content owes us that.
Right.
Right? Like they don't have to, like they're entitled to just, call each other up on Zoom and settle it over a cup of coffee in front of nobody. But, for our viewing pleasure and the benefit of the community and everything else on the list, y'all handled it the way you handled it. So I just wanted people to kind of appreciate that, because people who make their personal lives part of their content don't have to do that. Right.
Right.
True.
Yeah. All right, so, but yeah, also, I'm with you. I'm with you on the Captain Kirk thing. For me, it was like watching COVID and then George Floyd and then critical race theory and the anti-trans war and the insurrection, none of which has stopped, right? And so it's just the when do we fight back? Now the Roe v. Wade, right? And the whatever it'll be, 3 days from now. The only reason we ain't bitching about something today is because it's Sunday and these motherfuckers are in church. But tomorrow they'll be right back to sticking their foots as far up our asses as they can possibly get it, right?
Right.
So I appreciate you for speaking to it and being like, y'all. I told this story, and I'll shut up after that, which was that one of the things I loved most in history class was this day our teacher told us about how sometimes in war during a holiday, the opposing sides will stop battling, right? And they might play soccer. And I was like, nah, I ain't with all that. What you mean? They just gonna chill and be And so he said, no, they would do. This is, sort of a gentleman's agreement. And, everybody's just gonna have fun and enjoy Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever it was, right? No shooting today, right? And I would be like, man, that's really beautiful because it shows that we could put our differences aside and be friends and play a game and have a drink together, right? But at the end of the day, to your point, into the video that you just played, we were shooting at each other yesterday, and we're going to be shooting at each other tomorrow, right? And so it's all good to be friends, but please don't forget that we wearing them different colored uniforms for a very important reason.
Mm-hmm. The lines have been drawn, and we didn't even draw them. I mean, they brought the battle to us, and finally we're fighting back. So
exactly. Talk to my one black friend. Where you guys at with some of this?
You want to go ahead, Tux?
You go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. What I guess from my armchair view of Christianity, I noticed something that I didn't notice when I was in Christianity. The war language, the military language that's involved. This clearly is something that's done to unify. When you tell people to fight for this, fight for that, fight for, goes on and on. It does a few things to the mind. It gives them the idea that they have to seize control from someone else. Maybe even other powers, if you will. It gives them the idea that rather than autonomy, which they clearly have, they have something to lose. So it puts them on the defensive. When they're on the defensive, they tend to act out. Think of people who are upset, and maybe they're around you. It could be someone in your home, be it an adult or a child, or at work, a friend or something. When a person doesn't feel heard or understood, they make noise. They slam doors. They start shouting, not necessarily at you, but others will hear that person because that person probably feels quite stepped on by whatever processes that they're being subjected to and do not control. I think to some degree, I'll give you for instance, from my own life, this is extremely gentle and yet very telling. So I'm waiting in line. Behind me are a couple probably in their 80s or so. And we all seemed nice enough in line together. And a woman decided she would invite me to church. And I really appreciate when people do that. And I try to say yes, and I try to go just because I think it's another opportunity to understand others better. I'm not there to convert them or deconvert them. But if I could be a voice of reason and a comfort to those fellow atheists who are sitting in the pews and they can't leave because of whatever obligations they feel they have to adhere to. But I said, well, ma'am, I'd be happy to go, but I'm an atheist. And she hit me. She hit me. And she goes, no one's an atheist. This is ma'am, I don't believe in God. I'm an atheist. And she just couldn't believe that. Her husband looked rather embarrassed and shocked at her reaction. But again, our disbelief does something to them typically. You can look at the Sean McDowells of the world. I used to say you can look at William Lane Craig, but I don't know. I think now William Lane Craig might be an atheist. It just doesn't want to say. He's 80% there. But
you mean William Lane Craig?
Lane Craig.
Yeah, that was half my joking with him with the clips I do, right, which are out of context. When I first started playing William Lane Craig clips, what I would do with the apologists was I would pretend that they were a counter-apologist. So I particularly chose clips of them that I could play out of context where they would actually sound like they were counter-apologists, not apologists. So only like the real like OGs remember this. But I would used to be like, I'd always talk about reasonabledoubt.com. I'm like, you guys know about William Lane Craig, right? Yeah, William Lane Craig. He's one of the biggest atheist counter-apologists on the internet. Reasonabledoubt.com.
Nature is all there is. There is nothing beyond matter and energy. There is no supernatural reality.
Right. He's really big on the scientific method.
That isn't something that you can sustain the burden of proof for.
I remember the first time I had this conversation with them about the Flying Man, and I asked them about Myron, and I layered on the what does Doug call them? The journals, the diaries of his friends, and the testimonies, and the converts, and all that. And I was like, "What do you think?"
We have a powerful cumulative case.
Right? So, but to your point, right? It was, and I was talking to Sample Pack about this, I think yesterday or something, where I was saying it's funny because it shows me that they can verbalize the argument, right? Even when they're really doing I'm going to steel man the other side and then do whatever, it does show you that they're capable of sort of putting it in their own words. And so to your point, you wonder if they're right there or there, but they've just decided that's not how they pay the bills. And I often do wonder about that myself. Go ahead.
Well, I think what we're I think to some degree we have to be aware that their belief is delicate, because if any of us ask in the politest possible way, well, thank you for sharing your faith with me. How would I know that your God is real? How do I know your God really exists? Is there something I can have that God do today that would demonstrate that to me? And you probably will get no, and then a second sentence. If the person is particularly offended by you asking, you may hear, well, you're not supposed to test God.
Right.
And again, my follow-up for such things is, well, isn't that what I would say if I were trying to fool people and get them to believe what I wanted them to believe, because I was able to extract something from them, like money or their time or any other resources, or to get them to do things for me so I didn't have to do them?
I would never say that, but it's so good. I would always say something snarky like, well, isn't that convenient or something, right? But I think what you just said is really what I want to say, right? Which is, isn't this how someone would take advantage of you? Because that's what I really want to appeal to.
I think somebody else wants to talk, but I want to say, be careful not, if you can, don't offend them. Make them curious. I think that's more powerful. If you offend them, what do? In their mind, they want to justify their position, and they will do it without you standing there. If you make them curious, if you make them question what they believe, they will do it while you are standing there. And then you can be Socratic and lead them to what? A conclusion of what is actually reality.
So I think this is sort of why I wanted to do this, because I think, of course, like Lena always says, we need a diversity of approaches and perspectives. And I sometimes think of this now, because I've been trying to deal with this tension, I feel. But I think it's the tension between being effective, right? Hey, Jay, you should do this or that because it would work better, versus genuine, the most genuine. And I'm not saying that they can't always be the same thing or the same approach for different people. But for me, there is often a tension between, I think the most effective way I could approach this conversation is maybe this way, right? And then the most honest way I could approach it sometimes, at least to me, and I'm not saying this for anybody else, often feels like, I'm really actually upset about this, and I think you need to know just how absolutely ridiculous I think you're being about this, right? Even though I know that might not be the most effective. And the reason I think both are valid is because one, I think, is me going, you get further with honey than with vinegar. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, well, a lot of times when I go there, people think about it and then they come back later and they say, man, I really appreciate, how passionate you were about trying to set me straight. I really thought about it and I realized, you were trying to get through to me. Now, again, like I said, there's a diversity of perspectives, but I was hoping we would sort of get at some of that, and I'm glad you brought that up. Tux, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I think your stripper is sexy. That's a claim, right?
Yeah.
Your stripper is sexy. Now, you may choose to respond to that. You don't have to. There's no response required. I could be the one that says, hey, I think she's sexy. And you could just say in your mind, well, yeah, she is. Or you could say, well, no, today she's just not dressed as cute as she could be, as sexy as she could be. And there's no response required. Now, James Apperson has put forward an idea that is similar to what the opinion piece is of whether your stripper is sexy, except it's about her religion. And she has to respond. No, that stripper is not sexy because my Bible tells me she's not.
Right.
So in the claim that her God exists, we can choose not to respond. We could choose to say, well, I just don't believe that's true. I believe that this could be some form of deception, or it could just be kind of the passing of the baton to, from pagan religions to this new, super religion that kind of encompasses a little bit of each religion, or, whatever your claim is, she is still going to respond, and she is going to basically push back, or as my one black friend says, fight. It's going to use the language of, we have to defend this.
Right.
So in the terms of respecting the beliefs that she has, do we owe her that respect? And I don't believe we do. I believe we can sympathize with it. We can say, hey, we could compromise, and we could say, I think if you're making your false claim, well, we can make our false claims about the flying man, and we could come to an agreement. Or, we could come out winners here, and, kind of like the plot line of Dragnet. There was a movie back in the 80s where they remade Dragnet, and
yes,
the bad preacher is making a deal with the porn guy, and basically they're like, I'm saving the sinners and you're making the sinners. This is a win-win situation. And it's kind of in that arena. We could either compromise with our flying man. We could say, hey, you let us worship flying man and we'll let you worship your Jesus. But that's not going to be a level playing field. So we're not going to be able to become winners there either. And then there's got to be some sort of, the next step. There's an obligation that we are owed to everybody in this world to say, if this is deception, I'm helping you. Your claims that there is a Jesus exists, and my claims that a Jesus doesn't really exist, at least in the form that it became the Christ, the oral the tradition, Christ. The Christ part of it. There was a Yahshua ben Yosef. I'll give you your grain of truth, but I don't think the super Jesus that we see after the Gospel of John is a legitimate entity. So I'm willing to let you make your truth claims unchallenged. And we have to challenge these claims just the same. And indoctrination is where that challenge starts. If James is going to put the line in the sand and say, hey, this is bad, let's view it as bad, let's make the world aware that it's bad, then we are backing him up. Absolutely. And we don't need to use war language. We just use the common sense language, the Socratic method, to understand each other in a better way.
But my thing is, I don't have a problem with the war language at all, especially because the other side is using it. And this is what they want to do, is they want to fight the one-sided war. They want to do the onward Christian soldier thing. Hey, I'm worried that you're using militant language. No, I come from 5 generations of Pentecostal ministers. Please sit here and tell me that Christianity isn't militant. Right, I will get here with chapter and verse, song after song. Do you know how a Pentecostal choir comes in? Do you go to a church where when you go in and you sit down, the choir's already in the pews and they're just sitting there singing? No. Pentecostal church, they be marching in like it's war. What? They be marching down the whole aisle doing the processional before they march militantly into the choir stand. Like, it's serious. The onward Christian soldier, I joke about it. But why do I joke about it? Because I watched my grandparents get their advanced degrees. I watched my grandfather get his doctorate in divinity or theology or whatever, and my grandmother get her master's. So we went all the way from their bachelor's, and they were my grandparents while they did this, right? But first off, my grandmother didn't get her doctorate like my grandfather did, even though she's a way better student than he is. Why? Because she decided that a wife should not have the same level as her husband, right? So y'all could go fuck yourselves. Like I said, nobody stays a child forever, right? If you start as the child that's being indoctrinated, but then you become a mother, and you're an indoctrinated mother who's now indoctrinating the next generation, right? Then she indoctrinates the child. Now you become an indoctrinated grandmother, like I'm dealing with, who indoctrinated my mother, like I'm dealing with, who indoctrinated me, right? So the point of that was to say, every single time we went to their graduation, and we had to go to about 5 or 6 of these, and they were always forever, like 3-4 hour graduations, right? Every single time. What did they all march into? All couple hundred of them. Onward, Christian soldier. It was their traditional march song as they graduate, right? That's their graduate. They're all marching in to graduate and become out there in the military. So please don't try to come at me and tell me that the militancy is not central to Christianity. Just please, just don't try. It's not going to go well for you. Actually,
let me jump in.
Go ahead.
I can't let that slide.
Go ahead. So
we have to look back a little bit, and I don't know how often this is going to be relevant. So. The other show where we had Rebecca on, and I explained to her about why Jesus said to that guy, sell your sword, or sell your cloak and buy a sword. This is right after the Last Supper when they're coming to arrest Jesus. Again, I keep saying this, so forgive me if you're hearing this again. Jesus would have been surrounded by those people, those Hebrew people from various tribes in Jerusalem that have come, and they're seeking after him to take him away and give him his trial, right?
Okay.
If his message, Jesus, if his message was militant, this is the perfect time to give a rousing speech to win those people over to himself for a military takeover, because as part of that Passover ritual, you are supposed to gird yourself. You were supposed to put your weapon on. So if those people left their Passover dinner and came out with swords and staves, and they're standing there around Jesus, and they're supposed to take back Jerusalem from the Romans, this is the perfect time for him to say all the right things to make that happen. He doesn't.
Well, one, I'm not sure he could have, right? So if I really
wait, but he's supposed to be the Son of God. He's supposed to have all these people. You know, he's a popular guy.
But you got to remember, I don't buy that, right? So I think more like
me neither. I don't even think he was real.
So right. So but to a lot of people who do think he was real, it would have been if he was really who he says. You know, in other words, he's doing the whole song and dance, and then. I'm trying to think of what did we have this conversation about? Oh, we had this conversation about January 6th, right? We were talking about the fact that, because I was talking about how black people always just think when we see January 6th, like, why did they just shoot everybody, right? But there was a very tactical consideration, too, where they talk about, apparently we're going to go over the footage or whatever, but how they may have literally been outgunned. Like, maybe part of the reason they didn't go off and shoot everybody was because they could not have. They made the calculation. There's not that many of us. There's a whole lot of them. A lot of them might be legally armed and ready to do this. And they might be looking for a reason to shoot, right? So what I'm saying is, and again, I'm not going to get too deep into this because it honestly really wasn't my point, but I do see where you're coming from. If I'm granting a real historical guy here, he may have seen himself as whatever, and his message may very well be militant, but now he finds himself in a real situation where they're coming to get him or whatever, and he recognizes there ain't no way him and his 12 friends or whoever they were hanging out with, the little unarmed Jerusalites or whatever they were going to deal with the Roman army, right? So at that point, and even if he was a super militant dude, he may have found a way to make a peaceful sounding concession speak. Now, to me, it don't matter because I don't like talking about the Bible. I don't really like talking that much about the particularities of Jesus because, like you said, you don't think he existed, and I don't think anything we have as recorded him saying he actually said. But I do get that there's a way we could say the message of Jesus isn't militant. My point is more to say that we're talking in this particular context about Christians being upset about people using militant, warlike language to describe them, and I'm saying their culture is filled with it. Whether Jesus was peaceful or militant, cool. And if that's the conversation you want to have with Christians, knock yourself out. But for me, there's a very real way, and again, I don't have time to talk about everybody, right? But I'm just saying there's a militant Christianity that has a militancy in its core that all of us deal with and interact with enough that it has to be dealt with. Now, the bespoke edges, you know, the Richard Madsons of the world who have a real peaceful, loving, all-naturalistic, wonderful interpretation that doesn't require any violence, sure, we just ain't talking about that right now. You know, sometimes the conversation ain't about y'all. But yeah, go ahead, Tux.
I was going to say if James wanted to step in and ask anything or follow up with anything.
Yeah, James, go ahead.
Oh, all right. I was just writing various notes so I don't forget later, like what I want to mention. So there's a couple of things. Like, so I shared this clip, and we don't have to go into it today, but if I try to post it in the main chat, the bot will sanction me.
No. So I think is that the Captain Kirk clip?
No, the next clip that I've got there in the private chat. Is
what's
a clip from Jesus Camp?
Read it to me. Sorry, because I just which one does it say? Oh,
so my favorite video.
Video.
Wait, no, that's the other one. Hold on. So starting at time index 133, I've got this YouTube video, and the clip is from Jesus Camp, where the teacher at the camp is admitting that they were wanting to weaponize children as violent martyrs for Christianity.
All right, hang on. Let's get this. Is this the right
other one? No,
okay, that's the other one. All right, the one before that. Got you. Oh, it says the starting. James is sending me wonderful messages. I've just been trying to focus on other stuff, so I hadn't seen it. But thanks for.
I don't want to take us off the rails. If you want to throw those in, you can. But
I do because I think this is sort of relevant. All right, and it's at the timestamp. Oh my goodness, James,
you're welcome.
So wonderful. Thank you. All right, here we go.
I can go into a playground of kids that don't know anything about Christianity, lead them to the Lord in a matter of just no time at all. And just moments later, they can be seeing visions and hearing the voice of God because they're so open. They are so usable in Christianity. If you look at the world's population, 1/3 of that 6.7 billion people are children under the age of 15. 1/3. Where should we be putting our efforts? Where should we be putting our focus? I'll tell you where our enemies are putting it. They're putting it on the kids. They're going into the schools. You go into Palestine, and I can take you to some websites that will absolutely shake you to your foundations and show you photographs of where they're taking their kids to camps like we take our kids to Bible camps, and they're putting hand grenades in their hands. They're teaching them how to put on bomb belts. They're teaching them how to use rifles. They're teaching them how to use machine guns. It's no wonder, with that kind of intense training and discipling, that those young people are ready to kill themselves for the cause of Islam. I want to see young people who are as committed to the cause of Jesus Christ as the young people are to the cause of Islam. I want to see them as radically laying down their lives for the gospel as they are over in Pakistan and in Israel and Palestine and all those different places, you know, because we have, excuse me, but we have the truth.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. James, do you got anything? I want to tie this into what my one black friend said.
Go ahead.
In terms of when we as atheists have a reaction to somebody who is in the faith, they love Jesus, and they are inviting us to come right along with them. And there is a spectrum of say emotions, feelings, perceptions. On one end of that spectrum, on the easy end of it, it's kind of amusing to us because we feel we've looked behind those gospels and seen something that's maybe not as good as they think it is. To maybe even anger, like how could, my obtuseness is starting to come out, and how could you be this foolish, for instance? And somewhere in there that occurs. But there's a moment where it goes beyond that spectrum and it changes. And you now see with Jesus Camp, and you now see with a clip that I saw from Telltale, the YouTuber Telltale. He had a militant Christian on who was emphatic about making a sect of Christianity just as strict as the Taliban, to essentially be, you think the Handmaid's Tale is just sugarcoating for the apple pie. They want the whole pie. So it goes into a quadrant. That spectrum changes from a quadrant, and that religion, as you just saw in this clip, as you just saw in a reaction from Bread of Life or Rebecca, and James appeal to, okay, this is evil. Let's see it as evil, and let's not defend it anymore. That quadrant has become alive to what can happen on the very end of a destroying that continuum scale, that spectrum, and turning it into a quadrant and saying, now we're going to go all the way to this end. And we're going to attack it with fear, and we're going to attack it with guilt, and we're going to attack it with any kind of overruling power and respect. Just for our cause. And I don't know if anybody else saw it, but there was a documentary on CNN about Texas politics and their dominion abilities. They believe they're ordained by God to basically dominate everyone. And that our government is faced with a challenge that it's never had before, where religion is protected from the government, but the government is not protected from religion.
And I've been saying this. I propose a religious test. If you're religious, you fail. I mean, it's the time. Look, this is what I think the James Apperson clip was talking about. Not the clip, but the Captain Kirk clip you sent us. you got to draw the line in the sand somewhere. And I know a lot of people they want to take a very gentle approach and they want to be friendly. And I'm just a person who don't feel like I got time for all that. And I'm responding to frustration. I'm just where I'm at in life right now. And I'm not so concerned with where they're at anymore. Right? Like, I really start to feel like I want to tell y'all this, like, how they feel about what I say and how I approach their bullshit means very little to me.
My one black friend, did that tie in to what you were saying?
And hang on. I'm speaking for Jay Bundy. I'm not speaking for Hot Program, because as I hope y'all are understanding, the reason we're having this conversation is because my one black friend is very different. And I think Tux is coming from a different place, right? And James is coming from a different place, right? So we're all coming from a different perspective. I'm just speaking for where I'm at. The other thing I wanted to tie in was quickly two things. One, I feel differently because I've played as a worship musician in all of these different types of denominations, and so I'm very familiar with their song catalogs, right? And so I can tell you how deep the militant language is in the song book, right? And I know which songs they like the most, right? And then also, James, you make this point, which is you might be a friendly Christian and you might not be the radical one, but when you tell them they just need to go find the love of Jesus right now where they're at in life, wherever they happen to be, well, then they're probably going to walk into the local church wherever they happen to be, right? And then whose hands are they walking into? And I'm sorry, like, there's a reason I teach at the university. I talked about the tough conversations I often want to have with my students, right? When I have those conversations, I want to make sure that the person on the other end of that conversation is an adult, right? So there's a reason I don't teach at high schools. So now imagine me looking these people in the face who are in their 30s and their 40s and trying to have a conversation with them like I would have with a child. I'm just not willing to do it anymore. Y'all are grown. If I think you on some BS, that's what I got to say. And if it hurts your feelings, then consider not being on some BS. But again, I want to emphasize your point, James, which is you might be a perfectly well-meaning Jesus and apple pie Christian, but when you tell people to go wherever they find Jesus, they're going to go wherever they find Jesus. And that was a huge point, because they're not going to go into your lovey-dovey brand of Christianity. They're going to go into maybe some snake handlers, maybe some Trumpists, maybe some anti-vaxxers, maybe Greg Locke's church. Maybe they say, oh, that Kent Hovind told me that I don't need to pay attention to evolution, right? That Ken Ham, like my mother said, you wouldn't counter-apologize my mother, but guess what my mother brought to me? Answers in Genesis, the Creation Museum, right? So you wouldn't.
But again, that feathers her nest. That proves her case to her. Look, son, this is evidence. What I keep telling you about the power of Jesus and the reality of God is correct. These people built an ark that is a tribute to that. See what God has blessed? Like, this is a real thing. Why don't you believe in this, son? Look at it. That's where your mother is coming from.
Right. And I had to understand that.
When she can't answer you, hear me out. When she can't answer you, Ken Ham has. He's her voice. Like in the Old Testament, when God says to Moses, I will make you a god unto Pharaoh.
Right.
Well, Ken Ham has the power that Moses has. Ken Ham built an ark.
Right.
Ha-ha! And look at all the science inside. It's wonderful.
Right.
Jay, you can't deny the reality of what they have in that ark. And yet you do.
Yes.
And yet they've taken no care to faithfully reproduce what you learned all those years in school.
Yeah, yeah.
All those things you've told your mother about what we understand about evolution. Your mother won't need to process that. Can
I describe how you feel, how I feel about what you're saying?
Sure.
It disgusts me. It's literally, hearing you say this is literally making my skin crawl. And
all of this was done by people who do not care about your feelings or mine.
Exactly, which is why I don't care about theirs anymore. Literally, the reason I sent my family that very direct email was to make my peace with them dying. it scared the shit out of me. I've been wondering for years how I was going to deal with the fact that I think my grandparents love Jesus so much they're going to let Jesus give them COVID. They're going to die of COVID, and then I'm going to have to deal with it. What I decided I would do was after years of being terrified, I decided I was going to put it all in an email, put it in very plain English, send it to the entire family, and let the chips fall where they may. Yeah. Because again, my one black friend, I get that you're saying there's a better way to reach Wanda, but at some point, Jason is having the conversation for Jason, and Jason wants to talk about Jason's frustrations and how Wanda feels about Jason's frustrations is a personal problem that, as Wanda being a grown-ass woman, I expect her to deal with. And I know that's not your approach. I'm just trying to get better at being clear about what mine is.
Right. I'm going to circle back to you, Tux, but I want to prepare you. Pocket Lock, I want to prepare you. Acts 20, when the uproar has ended. Wait. I lost my place already? Did I really lose my place already?
That's it. You're fired.
24. Acts chapter 20, verses 23 and 24. I only know that in every city, the Holy Spirit warns me that prison and hardships are facing me. However, I consider my life worth nothing to me. My only aim is to finish the race and complete the task the Lord Jesus has given me, the task of testifying to the good news of God's grace. That is where your grandparents are.
It is. Yeah.
That's where they are.
And you know what? I had to make my peace with the fact that it might get them killed. And instead of wondering for the rest of my life how I feel, because again, like if that happens, too bad. And then I'm probably not going to even go to the funeral. Because, again, I tried to tell y'all. Now, again, I'm just not going to continue to bend over backwards and sacrifice and watch everything go to crap around me and not say anything. That's why I started doing all of this. Like, y'all don't understand. I'm suffering, right? I don't like to talk about it. But the reason y'all be like, damn, Jay be putting in them hours online. Jay is stuck at home. My entire life has been put on hold for over 2 years, going on year number 3. Right? I haven't been able to move. I wasn't able to hug the Rich Lensky that everybody's hearing about on the internet. I wasn't be able to hug him and say thank you. I didn't walk in my graduation. I didn't get to move to Minneapolis to Minnesota to start my postdoc. I have not taught in person. I have not seen my mentor. I do not interact with my lab mates. I'm a musician. That's what Pocket Locker means. I have not played live music in over 2 years. I am tired of protecting other people's feeling. I got news for people. I spent 3 eternities in graduate school for one reason. 3 eternities in graduate school for one reason. It's so that no one else could ever tell Jay Bundy what Jay Bundy should say.
Mm-hmm. I want you to know.
I'm just keeping it real with you.
You spent almost 3 years protecting yourself.
That's exactly
where you live has become a cocoon for you.
Very much.
So while you're there, when you come out, I encourage you to make sure you transformed into something more beautiful than you were before you went into isolation. I'm being very serious.
Yeah. No, seriously. Yeah.
So I think you still have a ways to go. But look, I flew back to California yesterday, and I wore a mask in the airport. I wore a mask on the plane. It is not required of me to do so.
Right.
But I watched one member after another of my staff when they traveled, when they got a break from work, a couple of days off, whatever. When they traveled, most of them came back. Literally, most of them came back with COVID. And one of my assistants, she pointed out, I think they get it when they travel. That's it. I'm wearing a mask on the plane from now on. That's my choice. Being there in your home is your choice.
Yep.
No one is making that choice for you anymore. The rules have changed.
Yeah, no. And the rules have changed in the absence of evidence. Again, the rules have changed based on what humans could tolerate and humans' emotion, what humans got to do. That's not how viruses work.
When you look upon your parents, your mother, your grandparents, I encourage you to keep some compassion.
No, I know it's compassion. There's a lot of compassion, but what I'm telling you is there's limits to compassion, and part of the limits to compassion is limits to my compassion, and that's honest. Like I like what I'm saying is I just can't I can't be the nice person that other people would like me to be because that's just not who I am. There are limits to that. There are limits to my good faith. There are limits to my grace. There are limits to how nice I'm willing to be to people. And that's just like tough titties for the rest of the world. And so for me, like, I love these people and I'm very kind to them. Like, I'm not mean to my family, but I'm also not going to continue to dance around certain issues. I'm going to say, this is how I feel. And be honest with you, my family's cool. Like, we ain't no beef between us. It's just, it was very personal. And I told people, like, this, I'm just letting y'all know what's going on. But again, I made my peace with it. It was a very nice email. I wrapped it up in very positive. I talked about, oh, you guys, check out this video it's done about me. You guys should support my cousin's music. And, you know, it was very nice. I put jokes in it. I tried to make it very friendly. But at the same time, like, there just comes a point where you got to, like you said, I'm protecting myself, right? So there's a point where I'm cool with my grandparents. Like I said, I made my peace with my grandparents. What triggered me? They're putting my mother at risk. Now there's a situation where my grandparents' lifestyle choices are potentially putting my mother at risk, right? So the intervention is I had to figure out a way to have the conversation with my mother, right? But it's really about my grandparents' behavior. I'm the oldest grandson in the family. Guess what I'm going to do? We're going to have a family communication. I'm going to just say what I got to say. Everybody can hear it. I invited them to respond to me, invited them to call me, and we could talk further. But again, I also know who I'm dealing with. My grandfather's a very stubborn man. And so we've done nice. My mother has sugarcoated his retirement for over a decade. Right? So there comes a point where, again, and this is something I've been talking about a lot in this apologetics community, the weakness of the people who want to be so nice to these people is that is a tactic that they continue to take advantage of. The fact that you will continue to, oh, well, you working on me, Jay. All right, well, we'll talk next time. Are you working on me, Jay? Right? It's the same thing in scientific meetings. We have meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and at some point somebody goes, I need to see some progress. I need to see an experiment done. I need to see some data. We are not going to be able to write a paper about all the meetings we had. And this is what happens. You can only show people so much grace until you need to say, hey, Grandpa, we gave you over a decade to make your transition plan. Whatever your transition plan ain't gonna happen. So what you need to do right now is retire. You work for a very big organization. They can handle these things. They do it all day, every day. It's time for you to move on. So if you got a quick plan that you could go to, I suggest you execute it. If not, let the organization take care of it. They do this every day. But now we're going to put you in a position where you're going to have to at least be aware of your family does not support what you're doing, and you are about to put my mother and her husband's lives at risk. Now, you may not like to hear that, but as the only biologist in the goddamn family, I'm going to put it to you as straight as I can. Just like you would want your doctor to do. You would want him to say, hey, look, I want to find a nice way to say this, but you have cancer and you need chemotherapy. Now, you're not going to like that. You're going to cry. You're going to whine. You're going to beg. And you're going to wish it was different. But that ain't going to change the reality of the situation. And again, it's cool, whatever it is, because I said my piece. They read my piece. So that's the end of it, right? Like, if they got something to say, they can, and they can do what they want to do. But my point is, I'm not going to keep swallowing my pride, swallowing my voice, not expressing my emotions, not expressing my outrage, not expressing my feelings, not expressing what I want to see, because it may not be the best way to get through to other people. If that's the primary focus of other people, then please, by all means, do whatever it takes to be the most effective version of yourself that you can be. But please understand, just like some people like baseball, I like baseball when I need something to go to sleep. I love pro wrestling. Most people think people who like pro wrestling are ridiculous in their adult years, right? There's different strokes for different folks. Some people are interested in soccer, some people are not. Some people are being as interesting and nice and compelling and effective in their interactions with the other side as they can be. People like me are not, right? This is just kind of what it is. Like,
okay. James Apperson.
Yeah.
This is your article. This is your blog post. You have the indoctrination and the person speaking out against it. Trying not to give up his voice, but making sure, reasserting that his voice is heard again and again and again. That's you, Jay. That's you.
Yeah, it spoke to me. It really spoke to me.
Hold on. We all heard you.
Sure.
We all heard you. Please understand, we all heard you.
Thank you.
Right now, your mother and her husband, they are clearly indoctrinated into following along with the plans of your grandparents. Perhaps to some degree, your mother is serving them to see how they faithfully serve God, and that deserves to be rewarded. And that's an admirable path to follow because your mother is a Christian too.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So it took all that programming, reprogramming, praising God, teaching her to praise God. It worked. So maybe for you and other people in your position, you don't have to buy into it, but people you love have bought into it. And none of those people are asking you to set them free.
Right.
So to some degree, since it is not all of society, right? It's just your family.
Sure.
The best thing to do is be loving. And
always.
I would say to some degree, I feel acceptance is the wrong word, but I think maybe Tux and James would agree that tolerance isn't. To some degree, you have to tolerate the fact that that's how they see things. That's how they want to conduct themselves. That's where they are in life. And they don't need to be shouted down or anything of that nature. They actually want to be supported and lauded for making the sacrifices and such a beautiful decision to share their faith with others.
I actually did that. So I said about how great it was that my mother, that they're sacrificing their retirement to take care of their grandparents. It's incredibly honorable of them to do and all of that type of stuff. But again, I just tied it back to safety. I just said safety. Again, what I just realized what I don't owe people is my silence, right? Like you know what I mean? It's just I sometimes I'll take their words. It's a free country, right? And so actually I think it was a good idea because, to be honest, what I think is really happening is I think my mother is nervous about their choices. I think she's very disconcerted about the fact that they got COVID. I think it did put a pebble in her shoe about her excitement about moving back home. I think she realized, she's been sort of we built the new house and we've been checking everything and we've been flying back to Jersey and they haven't been living there. And then I think when they got, once they got COVID, even though she realized they were going to be okay, right? Every time I talked to her, I'd be like, hey, how's it going? She'd be like, and I realized I think she was having a lot of discomfort. And again, she's been trying to get my grandfather to stop pastoring this church for over a decade, right? So I actually think, based on the tone in her email, that if you read in between the lines, there's a lot of relief in there. There's a lot of, Jay spoke out. Like, Jay went into, hey, multiple generations now are not going to stand for this. We're going to really have to have this conversation. Like, her response to me was very much like, yeah, we've been thinking through this, and yeah, we're going to have to, right? So reading between the lines, I think she was relieved. I think she felt like I stepped up, and she was like it was very well, Jay, she was very Dr. J. I know that came from a place of love, and that must have been tough for you. We really appreciate it. Like, she sent me back a lovely email. I'm just saying sometimes, and this is what I started at the beginning, it's not an effort to not love my one black friend. It's not an effort to not build the relationship. It's to say sometimes building a bridge requires hard work. Somebody's got to pour the concrete and nail the hammers down, and it's going to take some long hours and some hard work. You know this, right? In all our relationship. The reason I know me and you could argue for 1,000 years in front of people is because I know how much you love me. You've shown me that with your time, your patience, and your money. You're traveling, right? So I'm like, me and my one black friend going to be good no matter what, right? But you've put those risky things, those sacrifices, those efforts, those blood, sweat, and tears into the relationship. So I know it, and I think that's what James Apperson was trying to do for Rebecca. He was trying to say, Rebecca, we love you, but I feel very strongly about this. You're an example. And I think he went to the people of the Rebeccas of the world because you were trying not to make it about some scumbags and some jerks. You were trying to say even the people we're friends with, that we interact with on a regular basis, that we really like, we still want to speak to this. So yeah, my one black friend, I'm actually not disagreeing with everything you're saying as much as I'm also informing our audience about where I am at in a very emotional kind of time for me. But I do obviously value your approach, and I tried my best to be restrained and charming and say what I had to say in a way that I thought they would best receive it, and I think I was as effective as I could probably be right now. I want to let Jason Torn speak up.
I was gonna say, see if James. Let's touch back with James real quick, and then let's go to Jason.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Great idea, Tux.
I'm still here, and I too am anxious to hear what Jason has to say. He's a brilliant speaker and has a keen mind, and I always love what he has to say. So I can't wait.
I can't hear you, sir.
This is why we never have nice things, Jason.
Yeah, no worries. But guys, check out Jason Torn. Is Jason Torn the name of his channel?
I think it is.
I can hear Jason. I can hear him.
Oh, you can?
You can?
I can hear you.
I cannot hear him.
I can't.
I hear you. I hear you well.
You hear Jason Torn, my one black friend.
Yes, I hear him. I hear him well.
That's so weird. That's really weird. All right, what's going on here? I can't hear him. I can hear Tux. I can hear my one black friend.
Oh, so people in the chat are saying they can't hear him either.
Yeah, we can't hear him. I don't know how you guys are hearing him. Yeah. No sound from Jason. Yeah, all right. They're hearing what I think they're hearing. Yeah.
Jason, did you give it a refresh?
Yeah, try giving it a refresh. Let's make sure my stuff is set up here. Stereo audio. Oh Lord. Let's do that. That's not gonna make a difference, but all right.
What about
boom?
What about? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. That was weird.
Yeah. No worries. Thanks so much for calling in. I think this is another hot program first. This is our first visit from Jason Torn. So go ahead, man. Take the floor. Also, before you do, please let everyone know your channel and how they can find you.
Yeah, if you just are on YouTube and search for Jason Torn, you'll get my channel. It's pretty weak because, but I honestly, I have like 2 years of material that I'm going to be uploading. It's like 30 videos that I've got queued up, and they're all these debates that I've been debating different people, and I've clipped them out. So I tend to like.
Are you in our Discord?
I just joined your Discord.
Oh, great. Okay, let's chat there because I want to help. I'll help. Promote the stuff and show it and review it. We'll do all types of stuff to help you get out there, man. Appreciate you hopping in. Go ahead, take the floor, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have anything cogent to say, but I will say a couple things. One, I have been watching Jay recently, and I really enjoyed the NSF audio purchasing discussions. I thought that was
really
amazing. I loved it.
Thank you.
I love the thought about the David Blackman background.
Yeah. We're going for it. I showed my advisor too. I said, this is the set. We got to do it. I showed him a couple examples, and yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that encouragement.
That was great. Yeah.
So where are you at with this sort of issue with Christianity and indoctrination, child abuse, and how do we talk about it, and sort of the tension between me and my one black friend, right? We've got our own frustrations. We want to come to say, hey, if you're really my friend, I'm angry about something. It just so happens to be your worldview, right? Versus we also want to say, what's the most effective way we can actually be using our relationships to build bridges? So I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point. I was on the stream that James, that Rebecca had this conversation with James about his blog post, and I think I had said that my biggest concern is the indoctrination, brainwashing perspective. I tried to be respectful in that regard, but there's certainly this capacity when it comes to these topics like religion, which are very that have the ability to, change people's way of thinking, and for people to be motivated to do really crazy things, or for people to kill people, that they feel so impassioned around a topic that they are willing to do very radical things. This is something that's happened for thousands of years. We've known this is the case. And in America, we see this tremendously right now with the right leveraging like this weird twisted associations between like political powers utilizing and leveraging this known aspect of religious indoctrination to get people to be motivated around political wedge issues. And the example would be like, look at Trump. Trump is a guy that wasn't political whatsoever. His whole life, or not political, religious. His whole life, he wasn't religious at all. He doesn't know anything about religion.
Nothing.
But yeah, exactly. He knows zero about it. But what happens? He starts to realize that this is a way that he can use to leverage.
Hang on. This is my one black friend show. You may not see him, but I know he's probably jumping up and down. So his thing is religion is useful. Go ahead, my one black friend. I know you got it. I know you want to.
Hi, Jason, and welcome.
Hey,
religion is useful. Religion it wasn't invented by the Swiss, but it is the Swiss Army knife of political tools. You can motivate people to do pretty much anything, even if it's not rational, by use of religion, invoking the name of God, saying this is God's will, providence. It is what we should be doing. The Lord commands it. This should be Christian, blah, 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 whatever the faith is. You really can get the whole crowds going and communicating your message for you. You can pull scriptures out of 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians. You could pull it out of Acts, Samuel, or your butt, and it will be considered as useful for teaching, for prophecy, for rebuke, for political motivations, advancing your agenda, your ideology, and getting paid shiploads of money. It's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, I agree that it has been known to be a useful way to, and again, people may have different perspectives, but my view is it's a useful way of controlling populations. I mean,
it works better than reason.
I totally agree with you. So I'm not saying that it's not a useful tool. I'm saying it's dangerous in that somebody like, and I use the example of Trump, is somebody who is not religious whatsoever can step in and he has a sense of knowing that he can use this method to get what he wants, to garner what he wants. In some ways, Trump is like the worst of the worst because he is like he's like a sociopath. He has like
all right,
no.
Hang on, Jason. No. It's just you're making me think of something, and I want to try to verbalize this before I forget. So that's all. That's the only thing. Thank you for bearing with me. I've tried to make this point about Trump before, which is, I think he used to actually be a Democrat, right? He used to hang with the Clintons or whatever when he wanted to be one of the cool kids and hang with the celebrities and all that, right? But imagine if he tried to make his sort of comeuppance and run for president as a Democrat. there would have been no way he could do that, right? Because the road would have been blocked by all of the very serious politicians, and there's no way to get through the electorate that's going to be evaluating against these other people, right? But if you appeal to this demographic in the radical right, who, well, let's just say scrutiny isn't really their strong suit, right? And they were mostly apolitical before this particular candidate came along. Then there's a path, right, that doesn't exist if you're going to go the legitimate route and try to run on your public service record. And now a lot of other people, to speak to the danger, your Marjorie Taylor Greenes and Lauren Boeberts, and even some of your people like your Ron DeSantis, who would have been halfway on their way to maybe being a legit conservative. They would have been halfway to Liz Cheney otherwise, right? Or if they weren't, going, oh, no, the new thing to do is jump on this Trumpist radical, crazy, anti-everything thing, right? And so now the power is like shifting there. So, and so why am I bringing this up? Well, it's why I do this. It's because it's all tied together. If you didn't have that baked into these people's worldview, that sort of credulity, that sort of willingness to go against the conspiracy, and that built-in persecution complex that you can take advantage of, right? It would just be a lot harder for these people to have an actual valid route. Right now, they seem to have an 8-lane highway.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. Is that, for those of us who are old enough to remember, Donald Trump ran multiple times as a Democrat. I don't
remember that.
Oh yeah, he ran for office. He ran for presidency as a Democrat. I believe it's been many years ago, and like couldn't get anywhere. Couldn't get like 1% of the vote, and it's at some point. And I think this is an alignment, not just with Trump, but like you were mentioning with other politicians, that there's a realization with kind of like the AstroTurf movements of the ability to this manipulation, the ability to manipulate groups who are maybe less educated or are more prone to these conspiracy viewpoints, or as an example, religious indoctrination, that they're able to be controlled by the religious right, like by the Ralph Reeds of the world, by the folks that have kind of a connection between the religious, evangelical Christians, the Bushes. Remember Bush, the evangelical Christian, the most radical Christian to ever be a president, up until, I guess probably so far, that at some point in the early 2000s, I think that people like you're mentioning, like these are like the version 3 or 4, the
right. Yeah.
We could go back.
But you're going back to the OG, like the version 1s and version 2s. Correct. Yeah, right.
Correct. It's cycled through, but these folks have realized that they can, think of like the Tea Party movement. Like that was like another
the Palin,
example of
that gave us the Palins and the
totally.
And to speak to my one black friend's point, it's useful, and to yours, it's dangerous. So what am I getting at with this? Well, there's a lot of that in pro wrestling. Right now, I might be a person who likes it and sees what's going on behind the scenes, right? But if you need to build a sports entertainment product on gullibility, you don't take it to Harvard, right? So when you watch and see a lot of the decisions in pro wrestling, there's a lot of pandering to the Americana and the sort of, people always say it's like low rent entertainment. It's like, is it low rent entertainment? Or is that the model, right? And I love that about it, right? Because I get bored. I work in the academy all the time. When I come home, I'm like, nah, let's talk a lot of shit and then hit people with steel chairs. I'm with it. Let's get it, right? And so, but to your point, right? That's where the used car salesman comes in, and Nigerian prince, and the Tinder love scams, right? It's easy to go with that. And the thing that is difficult for me to remember, and I think it's what you're seeing in the conversation with me and my one black friend, is like, there's this struggle to remember that the people that are participating in this and doing this are themselves the victims, right? It's like my grandmother was indoctrinated and she did it to my mother because that's how she was raised and I was around and I know all this, right? And it's like, it's so tough to remember that they're not acting out of malice, right? But at the same time, the result of the behavior is problematic, right? And in some way, if a malicious person was going to do this, you probably wouldn't intervene because the person was malicious. If I was going to slap you upside the head, Jason, you probably wouldn't be like, well, don't let Jay slap me upside the head because he's mean. And then if Tux TV went to slap you upside the head, you'd be like, well, let Tux slap you upside the head because he's a real nice guy, right? Right?
That's exactly, I was going to say, on this exact issue, if you remember, for many, many years, the religious right with regards to politics would say things like, we care about character. We care about the historical character of somebody. We have to go back and look at the way they acted in the past because that shapes how they might be a politician. We care if they were sincere and honest in the past or like were religious and like went to church and cared about those things. Those things mattered. Now, here comes Trump. And what happens? The religions folks say to themselves, like the highest of the high religious folks say, it's not about his past. It's about what he's going to do for us. So we don't really care that he was a rapist or he was this or he was that in the past or that he didn't go to church. What we care about is that he's going to promote like pro-life judges, that he's going to promote these issues that are in alignment with our views now. So that seems to be an oxymoronic position. So it's not in good faith.
Yes. And he even said explicitly to them, I will give you power. We're giving power back to God. All right, guys, I got to get ready to go. I've got to be at my meeting at 6. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep the after party going. You guys can't hear the church audio anyway. So if you guys want to stay in the restream, that's fine. We can hang out and we'll just keep chatting. I will end the broadcast on Hot Program. And then just to give guys the agenda tonight, I've got Sacred Death Gaming, my club. We meet every Sunday at 6, so we'll do that. I'll probably just put it on a small screen, and then we'll just keep chatting and talking while we do that. And then after we're done with church, we'll be gaming with my club for a little bit. I do like for you guys to hear the rundowns and all the stuff we do afterwards. 10 o'clock tonight. We will do the Atheist Crew Book Club, the next chapter of God Is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens. And then tomorrow, and then we'll do an after party for that. Y'all know what it is. It's Sunday. It's for Show J. Y'all know how it is. We out here. And then tomorrow at 1 p.m., I'll be back with Cliff, and we'll be doing Digital Evolution Time, and that will be the start of my work week, and we just going to keep this thing going, y'all. So I got to get out of here in about 8 minutes or so, but I want to give everybody on the panel their time to give their closing thoughts. I usually go first simply because I'm already running my mouth. I really just want to thank James Apperson for being here. I think this was super, 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 super important. It is a central motivating issue to why I got involved in this community and so interested in this content in the first place. I very, very, very much think religious indoctrination of children is child abuse. I actually want to see federal legal action brought against the Ken Hams of the world, the Kent Hovens of the world. We have footage that they are doing what they are doing out of willful ignorance to great financial gain. I want to see them prosecuted. Tux, I'll let you decide the order. I just say we give James Apperson the last word.
I agree. My one black friend, you go.
All right. I just want to circle back to something you wanted to know about, Tux. So political implications for this indoctrination business here that the Christians have going, other religions have going. For the Christians, you could look at Romans 13. Let's take it 1 through 6, where it talks about respecting the political officials that have been put in place and that they've been put there by God and you can follow what they say and trust it. That's in a trash can when it's not needed. When the person speaking needs you to do that, they'll remind you. They'll bring out that, they'll pull Jesus's carcass right out of that tomb and start telling you, he said so you have to do it. Okay? Now, if you skip down to Romans 13:8, it says, let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. Isn't that pretty? The commandments, you should not commit adultery, you should not murder, you should not steal, you should not covet, and whatever other command there may be are summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to a neighbor. That's in verse 10. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. I want Lauren Boebert to say that. I want Marjorie Taylor Greene to say that. And I want Trump to say that. And I don't know that they will believe it. If I just said that without giving it the context, I don't know that they would believe it. But if I were to say that's from your Bible, Trump would probably reply, I don't have a Bible. That one you saw me with wasn't mine. And Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene probably do have a Bible, but they don't remember anymore everything in it any better than I do. So I'd say that's an issue that needs to be addressed. It helps when an atheist knows what's in the Bible, because then they can remind people who are trying to beat them over the head with it what's in there.
Oh, go ahead.
Hold on a second. And also, I got to be real quick here because I know there's limited time. For James, bioweaponizing the religious, how they have done that to themselves. I think most people don't know that it's happened to them. I think they're really unaware. And I think, to continue with the question you asked, there's a lot of people not being active or proactive because why? They've been taught to not do anything because things are in God's hands. If there is the worst thing about religion is that concept that things are in control by God. If you reference the original Pandora's box story, the last thing in the box was hope. And as I was taught in my Latin class, it was the most dangerous thing ever let out of the box. That's my piece.
My friend, I was just going to say, one thing I appreciate about you and Tux is that you guys have really brilliant, core theorems, and Tux's is, an evil so evil, everybody thinks that it's good, or at least that's part of it, and part of yours is the one, that religion is useful, and that because of that, then knowledge of the Bible is useful. And I'm always telling people throughout the week when stuff happens that the Bible will pop into my head or something, and I'll say, oh, this is my one black friend again, where that knowing the Bible is super useful. And with that in mind, that religion is useful. It's like if you've got this bulldog on a bone and he just won't get off of it, maybe you can kind of guide the bone towards where you want the pit bull to go, right? And so you're like, if religion is useful and that's what they're going to be held to, well, then maybe we can make that useful to us and get them to actually talk about the useful part of the belief system, right? If that's what, if you guys are going to say you're Christians, all right, great. Now, can we get to the heart of Jesus, lovey-dovey part where we take care of the sick and the poor, right?
Again, the short question is, why are things such a mess? If it's so effective, why are things such a mess?
Yeah. No, I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, wait for your answer.
Yeah, who's next, Tux?
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do my altar call.
Sure.
And thank you, James, for coming on. And I want to close by using 2 John 1, 7 through 11. And that is, for many deceivers are entered into the world who confess not that Jesus Christ has come into our flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. Look to yourselves that we lose not the things which we have wrought, but that we receive a full reward. Whosoever transgresseth, I can't say that, sorry, and abideth, the King James, the damn King James, not in the doctrine of Christ hath not God. He that abideth in the doctrine of Christ, he hath both the Father and the Son. If there come any unto you, and bring not this doctrine, receive him not into your house, neither bid him Godspeed. For he that biddeth him Godspeed is a partaker of his evil deeds. As previously mentioned, Jay said that I believe that the Bible and the Christian is practicing an evil so evil that everyone sees it as good. They don't see it as good. They have a veil. They have the screen over their eyes that they just can't see it. James Apperson is bringing that Antichrist message to the Christian. And I believe that message needs to be said. Not because he wants to be the Antichrist, not because he wants to deceive anybody, but because he himself, Jay, Pocket Locker 86, my one black friend, I'm going to include Jason in here as a guest. We all see a vision that relieving this deception as the Antichrist is not being the Antichrist to deceive. But James, you are using the Antichrist motif to hopefully lift that veil, to hopefully bring that smoke screen that is over the Christian's eyes and hopefully see that what they have done is practice the knowledge of good and evil. And they see it as the evil that it is instead of thinking that it's good. All right, James, you got the last word.
Well, I appreciate all of that. I greatly appreciate everybody that was on the panel today, and I see and appreciate everyone that was in chat today. Been reading through that, some wonderful comments and thoughts, and I really greatly appreciate all the support. And I'm here for you too, anytime. And with that being said, I want to make one final note about Rebecca. At one point during the stream, she did start to give. She admitted that I changed her mind, or was at least getting her to seriously reconsider moving back to this one fundamentalist church that she was at before. She was getting ready to, and then I shared my story about my son and the mistakes I made while I was still a Christian, and how much that cost him and how much that cost me, and how religion weaponizes us. Christianity, especially fundamentalist Christianity, weaponizes us against humanity and against our loved ones, and tricks us into thinking that destructive words and behaviors count as love. And I even quoted Matt Dillahunty when I explained all of that. And she admitted it. Like, she had tears in her eyes, and she admitted that, that really gave her some powerful reason to reconsider. She might not go back to that church after all. And so it's an inch. There's miles to go. It's an inch, and I appreciated that inch, that she was willing to really hear me on that and not hold it against me, and to say, you know what, that's moving, and I'm gonna let that weigh. And I think that made the whole thing worth it for me personally. Beyond that, like right now, there's a person called Stephanie that's on that page who misunderstood what Rebecca was trying to do. Oh, you could say maybe she understood it, but I think she misunderstood it. That it was kind of a call to hate bond against James. I didn't interpret it that way, but this one lady named Stephanie did, and so she's been like trashing on me so hard in the comments. And Rebecca apparently got on her about it, which again, props to Rebecca. And then so Stephanie felt like she had to delete her posts, and now she feels like she doesn't belong in the community. So then she came back and she mobilized some guy named Chad to try to side against me and talked a whole bunch more crap. And like, I defended myself again, but it is so tiring to go back into the lion's den and defend myself again and again from not just fundamentalists, but from their non-Christian support base, which just floors me. Like, why are non-Christians getting defensive on behalf of Christians? It makes no sense to me at all. So I'm kind of waiting to see how that plays out. If you guys happen to catch some of that drama, please feel free to kind of, get my back if you happen to see it. But I'm not asking you to go out of your way for that, just if you do see it. And I don't know if I'm going to stay actively involved in Rebecca's corner of the community moving forward or not. I haven't decided, but I was.
Oh, I was curious about that. Okay, go ahead.
I'm on the fence about that.
Okay.
Like, is it worth my time? And I'm open to feedback about whether or not it's worth
I predicted that there was a good chance that you were just going to keep doing your thing and start your channel and just outgrow your personal, need for that. You just get busy, you get caught up doing your own stuff, and
there's been diminishing returns in that whole scene, and I feel like, because I asked myself, I'm like, I've got a lot of very respectable friends, and they don't get caught up in that kind of drama. And the difference is they're doing something that I need to be doing. They have their own channel, their own platform. They, and they have each other's back in that stage.
Yeah, they
don't spend a whole lot of time in a comment section underneath Christian videos, like getting ganged up on by fundamentalists in their support base.
Yeah,
so. I set myself up for that.
The other thing I was going to say is, do you drink?
Only on rare occasions. I'm not against it, but there's very few alcohols that I actually like.
Well,
but I'm not
find something you like and pour yourself a tall one, because honestly, when you do something that gets this strong of a reaction, it means you should do more of that. I'm going to just tell you, man, the algorithm is a nasty business, but you want to do things that are relevant to people in your community, about people they know, about topics they can identify with, so that they will click and interact with what you have to say. And when somebody is getting so upset that they just have to let you know how bad you are being, you are doing something very, very right. So whatever your treat is, treat yourself. Guys, I want to thank the panelists for joining me. Just so you guys know what's happening, it's super cool. My one black friend was traveling, so we didn't know if he was going to be here for the next 3 weeks. I pulled in Tux to sort of co-host in his stead. So
thank you.
Yeah. And we just kind of took it from there, and then my one black friend was available. So so we just ended up with a bonus show with the whole gang together, and maybe we'll get the panel together next week and see what we're getting into. Thank you all for joining me. I'm gonna end the Hot Program show. If you guys are in the restream, you can just stay where you're at. You don't have to do anything. If you are on Hot Program, please feel free to follow me over at Pocket Locker 86. I'm live there on YouTube right now. That's where we'll do the after party. We're also live on Tux TV on YouTube, so you can head there. We'll stay live on Tux TV as well. Of course, you can follow me in my right-wing alternate account, where I will be hanging out trying to get reactions from right-wingers in the comment section of their videos. Hunter Biden's laptops. And I'm also live at Pocket Locker 86 on Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. All right, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. My one black friend, do the close with me. As always, take care of yourselves.
And each other.
In the name of the Darwin, the Dawkins, and the Christopher Hitchens. Poof. All right. So I
gotta say this.
So go ahead. Yeah, you're good.
In evil, Jason, how did you phrase it? In evil, so evil that people think it's good. Maybe that's
Tux's thing. Yeah.
Okay, that could be a show. Let me tell you why. I've brought this up on our show before. When Jesus is getting tempted by Satan. Mm-hmm. Satan tells him, like, hey, look, all these kingdoms, I have the power to give this to you.
Yeah. This is all deception. It looks like it's Satan's.
If you've read the entire New Testament, Satan is the god of this world. Jesus says to his disciples, all authority has been given to me.
It's been given to him. And who said that they were giving it away?
And if you read Revelation, he comes back. This is the part that ought to tell every Christian you can't believe any of it.
Yeah.
On horses.
Revelation 12:9. Revelation 12:9. Did they have their
horses? Like, does heaven have a stable where these horses just sort of grazing or pasture where they're just grazing, waiting for Judgment Day so Jesus and his buddies can come back a riding and a womping every little atheist thing that moves within an inch of its life.
Old number 6.
Work up a number 6 on them. That's right. Do I really think?
Too Jewish.
Do I really think when I'm being reasonable and charitable? Do I really think that's God's plan?
Yeah.
If there is a God, God's plan is to beat me up.
Well,
he's been doing a pretty good job of it. But
well, to tie into what you were talking about is one of the conclusions that I drew is Satan in Luke 4:6 states that he has everything. If you look at the end of that story, the conclusion of that temptation, Jesus doesn't necessarily say no, and angels administer it to him, right? If you read Revelations 12:9, the devil has deceived everybody in the world. There's no asterisk for any Christian whatsoever, right?
Okay.
And the punishment that the devil's finally going to get is he and his angels are going to be tossed in a lake of fire. So let me get this straight. The devil's got some angels. He's got a control of everything. He's finally going to get defeated someday by my archangel Michael.
Have you ever gone to a laundromat, Tux?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Have you ever looked at your clothes in the dryer?
Yes.
How if there's a particular color, let's say there's a red shirt you have in there, and the red shirt is going around and around, and it seems to stay in like the front of all the rest. While you're looking, it never seems to make its way to the back. It just seems to stay right there.
Yeah.
When I read the book of Revelation, there's certain things in there that are kind of like that red shirt where, like, wait, this is being recycled. This is just going around and around. It's like the same thing again. So Revelation will tell you something is going to happen. Later in itself, that event actually occurs, and sometimes more than once. So when I said this when we had that guest, what's the guy? He had the real esoteric
Richard something.
Madsen. Yeah. I really enjoyed that guy. There's a lot of things he believes that we didn't really get into.
Sure, yeah. I mean, dude, how great have these shows been, my one black friend? Sorry, we just keep like running out of time, right? They've just been so awesome. Like,
yeah,
they've been some hot programs, man. Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, Madsen, I said to him, it seems like two gods are at war. You will notice that it talks about people will take the mark of the beast in their right hand or their forehead. Well, if you keep reading Revelation, you'll learn that God's people have the mark of God sealed in their foreheads. So wait a second. I really think the writer of Revelation was lazy and kept forgetting where he left off. So they would put stuff in more than once because he's just copy and pasting from other stuff. And
I think
I
the
kind
same
of think
thing.
they thought of almost none of it as original, but it's just all pasted from somewhere else.
I think the same thing is happening at a slower level in Genesis. That there's a cause and effect that's going on. There's a prediction. Well, the reason there's a prediction is because you just cursed him. That curse is going to cause this effect. That effect is going to cause this revelation, essentially. And it keeps repeating itself. It does it through the entire Bible. You can't start a God who creates everything this amazingly. I've looked at the trees. If the God that created that tree is that amazing, he's not going to need to curse 100% of the population and then have to destroy it. Right?
I would think he would just do the best job from the get-go and not make things so lousy. And then what does it say about you if you literally have to ruin it for everyone else forever because you're upset? Wow, look, I've been 6 years old before, and no one can pin that on me. It certainly wasn't me doing that. Well, I'll just ruin it for everyone.
I'm fast approaching 60.
From the Bible's God.
What's up there, Jason?
Hey, I just want to say one thing. Jay, are you listening, Jay?
Yeah.
Okay. At some point, I would love to do a show that is more based on like our academic experiences, like, you know, on a lot of these topics like scientific communications. So anytime you want to do that,
you want to do it next Sunday?
Sure, if you want to do that, that'd be.
Yeah, we don't have anything. We don't have anything booked for. Are you good at 3:30 Eastern?
Okay, so that's 12. I'm on Pacific time.
Yeah, that's when we start. So that would be 12:30. Yeah.
I think it will work. I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be in Oregon, but I probably could still do that. So 12:30 on Sunday.
Yeah, let me know on Discord, like say, you know, between now and the middle of the week or something. And if not, then I'll pull something else together. But yeah, I think that'd be great. The timing would be perfect because I'm trying to become more of like almost like I hate to say like a work streamer. right? Because that's a lot of what I was like into, like when I got into Twitch, was like the idea that like I'm gonna work throughout most of the afternoon and the early part of the evening, and then I'll do some fun stuff late at night. And so I've been streaming more of my meetings. I think my teaching advisor and I are going to stream our class this semester. I keep saying we might. He's down to do it. It's just one of those things where we're going to have to get permission from our students, so we can't say for sure until they, sort of agree to be on stream. But so that would be super huge. I meet with Cliff twice a week, like one of my collaborators. So, and then during a lot of time during the day, I'll be doing what are like coding streams under like the science and technology category, C++, Python, and Rust.
Nice. Okay, I don't really do C++, but I do Python and Rust. So.
Oh, do you? That's great, because actually the thing I'm trying to do is translate between them. So I'm going through like a C++ book, and then I'm taking what's there and like doing it in the other two, or getting the closest, going, oh, they don't have that, here's why, and here's what you do instead, right? So that's been fun. But yeah, I think it'd be great to chat about that. And then also, I'm doing stuff throughout the week. I've been doing the January 6th coverage. I'm trying to do all the hearings. So feel free to, just jump in anytime.
Can I ask what university you're at?
I work for the University of Minnesota, and I teach at Michigan State.
Okay, gotcha.
What about you?
I am at the University of Idaho.
Oh, my friend Nkrumah literally has been there for the last couple of years. He just left, I think, to come back to Michigan State, but he really liked it there. Are you in Moscow?
I am. Yeah, that's where I am right now.
I heard it's pretty wild there, actually. And Fundy's like crazy.
Oh my God.
Like it's wild there here.
There's a Christ Church, which is led by Doug Wilson, who is like, that's a really radical
they're known. Yeah, they're like famous.
Known.
Yeah. They're way out there.
So we have like that part of the,
and then swingers too, right? And like other kind of alternative lifestyle people.
I mean, I wish.
Oh, you don't know about that? You don't hear about that part? Yeah, I what he told me. Yeah, okay, all right, go ahead. What are you gonna say?
Damn, I gotta.
You gotta get out more.
Anyways, but I love the fact that you're intersecting your work in terms of like, because I really think, and this I'll stop
sure.
on this
No.
I know you got other things to do.
No, you're fine. I'm not. I don't have anywhere to go. You guys are fine. So I don't have anything to do for at least probably another couple hours or so, because we're just.
I do need to excuse myself. I got to make room for my car.
Yeah.
A painter who's supposed to paint my house tomorrow. I'm sure he forgot, but great talking with you all, and thanks for coming. I appreciate it. And maybe when I return from my trip to Parts Unknown, we can do that episode. I think we should talk about it first, though.
Okay.
If you're still listening.
Yeah. No, I'm here.
Okay, but yeah, we should sort of get an idea of each other's points so we can enhance those points, or even I think I can refute that or whatever.
Wait, which one are you talking about? The one where you're the apologist?
Evil, so evil that people think it's good.
Oh yeah. Let's do that with Tux, and then yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think so. We can plan it out. Yeah, just let me know. We also need to do some of those ones where you're in character. We got to get you like a prop or like a hat to wear or something.
I bought a hat. I've been opening Amazon packages for a while now, and other companies too, because I bought like new suspension for my Firebird. So I still have like an ultrasonic cleaner. There's a box, I have no idea what's in it. A pair of Gervin forks from like 2000 or something, year 2000. Ride Tech suspension, true turn system, and another box that I have no idea what it is, but I've opened a lot of packages. My foyer is full of cardboard that I need to take outside. So here's some screws. This is for Firebird. I don't know what it's for. Probably radiator mount. Anyway, I got to run because this needs to go outside with the other stuff in the garage. So take care, and I'll see you all again in a few weeks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. That was fun.
Oh, yes, absolutely. All right, be well.
All right, I'll see you later.
Later.
See ya.
All right, guys.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get out of here too.
All right,
I'm just gonna say love this topic of like the intersection of like social media, YouTube, Twitch, etc., with these more like computationally hard science topics, communicating in that capacity. I think it's visionary. Not very
thank you.
So I'd love to talk more about this because I feel like we could do more together.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. So like, send me send me a private message on Discord and we'll chat. But I'll just say quickly. Also, guys, when I look over here, it's because I put you up on this screen so that people can see you while I'm doing what I'm doing in front of me. So it's actually me looking towards you, not away from you. But the thing I was gonna say is, I've been doing a lot of YouTube pervert stuff because part of the gimmick I'm playing is that I'm taking over YouTube, and it's not that I care about like numbers. I'm just trying to like show progress because it's fun. But a lot of the guys I've been watching, they're the people who make YouTube videos about how to make YouTube videos, right? And so they've been like, figure out what's unique about what you do, right? And so I'm a variety streamer. Like the thing that's very unlike Pine Creek or Rebecca or whoever is that I would never want to be a full-time apologetics channel. Like I just couldn't. I just can't handle it, don't care, and I'm way more into other things. And for me, the Counter-Apologetics community is mostly like my social life, far more than it's like I actually care about theology. And people know I hate philosophy. I'm like, oh, you guys put me to sleep when you start talking about, and so I was doing a lot of this other stuff before. Like I was doing a lot of coding streams and all my gaming, and doing this kind of stuff with my GTA club and all of this stuff. But it was always on Twitch. And then I started doing the Counter-Apologetics, and that was on YouTube. And so the recent thing has been with Restream, I've been able to go on all the platforms together. And so basically this one guy was saying, for example, his thing is he makes a lot of videos about how to get YouTube videos. And so a lot of people that are finding his new channel are people who come from his, how to make videos, right? And so he says, one of the things I'm open to then is giving people content creation advice, like on my gaming streams or whatever, right? He's like, I'm not going to turn my entire stream over to it all the time because I want to jump off a bridge, right? He's like, but I recognize that that's a unique thing that I bring to my audience. And so if somebody comes through with a content creation question while I'm gaming, I'll answer it. We'll have a quick discussion about it, and then I'll get back to what I'm doing. And maybe they'll stick around, maybe they won't. But it's a unique thing that'll bring people here. And so I kind of realized the same thing where the same way people would watch a lot of my programming streams, because I would just call it like coding and chill.
Mm-hmm.
So I found a lot of programmers, a lot of science types. It was really useful, actually, because sometimes people would come through and I'd be having a problem I couldn't solve, right? And they'd say, oh, you should do this or that. And I'd look it up and they'd actually help me. But other times people were like, oh, I just, like the random stuff you talk about or the videos you play or just the lo-fi. Like it was kind of like, let's take a lo-fi and chill stream where all people care about is the music. And they're just not even caring what's on the screen, and then we'll just put programming on the screen type of thing, and then talk about whatever's going on. And so once I could use Restream, I just started doing like code Counter-Apologetics and chill, where I'll put on like R.M. Brown or Gin and Truth or, whatever videos are going on in the community for the day, and I'll like do a little bit of that, and talk about that while I'm doing whatever I got to do for the day, so that the Counter-Apologetics crowd can talk about that. They get their little thing, and then I'm able to talk more about the work. And then as people get more into that, I can say, all right, now I don't want to listen to that anymore. I want to really focus on what I'm doing. And people are kind of in, So, yeah, it's just been throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, But I appreciate that. I just wanted to kind of share that and say, if you ever see that going on, please stop by, because it'll help, right? It helps me. Like a lot of times during the day, like I would play a clip video and I just let you guys sit here and talk about it. Because if you guys sit here and ramble about something for 3 hours, I can get a whole lot of work done during that period.
Oh my God. I do the exact same thing. Like while I do all these like religious streams where I'm debating people, I'm coding at the same time. I'm running models. I'm doing doing all this shit. I managed to get like a shitload of work done while I'm like listening to people, and I'm like I'm doing the philosophical debating, but I'm coding at the same time.
You already know the vibes. It's like I got to sit here in this chair. I might as well get something done.
I'm doing it as we speak. I have my R session up right now.
Oh, great. Yeah. So that's that life. And this conversation really helps me too, because it helps me go back to my advisors and say, no, people like this stuff.